Exciting and new.
He's on.
Mr. Brown, I need you to move over one seat if you would. So you're in the middle, please.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. Okay. Oops, one last thing to click. There we go. I think we're ready to start. This is 24 CV 013860. How do you pronounce your last name?
Saris.
Saris versus Brown. Today is set for the final accounting, where we're going to figure out how to divvy up a little more than $240,000 that's sitting in the registry. My recollection of the history of the case is that Ms. Saris and Mr. Brown were co-owners of a very nice piece of property down in Chattahoochee Hills, 11800 Hutchison Ferry Road. It's been sold, and the excess proceeds from the sale are what constitute the 240 plus change in the registry. And what we're working through this morning is, as between Ms. Saris and Mr. Brown, who gets what share of that. Ms. Niles had asked that you all get exhibits in advance. I got no exhibits from anyone, so I'm flying a little bit in the dark, and we're a little bit behind in that way. But we'll work through it. So I will start with plaintiff's side. Mr. Brown, you will get a chance to respond to everything. There's really not a need to object either side in this hearing, because each time I hear from one side on something, I'll say, what do you think on the other side? There's no jury, it's just me. So you don't need to object. You can just, when it's your turn, disagree or correct or say there's another way to look at this. I don't want to say never object. Something could happen, but I will very faithfully hear from both sides as we work through this. And so I'm happy, Ms. Roy, if you want to get going with plaintiff's presentation of her claim to some amount in the registry. Unless, I don't mean to assume you guys haven't settled this. One way of interpreting the fact that neither side followed the directions of sending in exhibits in advance was that you guys have worked it out and you were just here to say, sign here, Judge, 120 going this way, 120 going that way, and happy Good Friday. But given the amount of paper, especially on Mr. Brown's desk, I'm guessing that's not how it played out. So I'll start with plaintiff.
And we had sent in our exhibits when we thought it was going to be a final hearing before, in terms of there's just a lot of redacted bank records.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have, my paralegal was out, so I didn't have the benefit of her. It was too big for me it kept getting bounced back. And I thought, well, I'll talk to the court about that when I get there, if we need those. I'm hoping maybe we can streamline some of this, but we'll see.
Okay. I'm all for streamlining, but no one's required to do that. And like I said, we can work through. If either one of you is wanting me to look at something, you need to have a copy for the other side, or you need to screen share it. And so if you don't have the Zoom link, I'm happy to give you the Zoom link so that your machine, if you have a machine, and I see that Mr. Brown does, can get on the Zoom, and you've got one too. So I don't need it to be digital. I'm happy looking at a hard copy. But if one side is saying, Judge, look at Exhibit 6, and the other side doesn't have Exhibit 6, that's not an approach that's going to work, because 4 sets of eyes need to be looking at each of the exhibits.
We've got it.
Great.
We have you covered on that.
All right, excellent. Let's get going.
In fact, we have sort of an overall accounting big picture that we'll share with the court. It's not an exhibit in that sense, but a
That's okay.
the final number.
You don't have a court reporter, so you don't need to worry about exhibit numbers. We'll just rely on that.
So we'll share that, and then we can at least work off of that.
Okay.
As we're talking,
Please, and both of you are free to approach if you're getting something up here.
And how far would you like me to formally stand and?
As I can hear you just fine. If you're comfortable being seated at council table, that's fine. It's formal in that I will issue an order, but I don't mind if people are talking from a seated position. So wherever you want to be. Some people say, I can't talk unless I'm standing.
I think that it helps me. My client has been very involved in.
Okay, then you stay next to her.
I know she wants to participate, so, all right. Before we get into the weeds, the numbers and my chair, it's interesting noises, it's not me, it's the chair. Before we get into the weeds of it, what's a little different with this property than sort of your garden variety partition matter where residences share, this was a rental property, neither one of them lived in it. So, and those concepts will come to bear when we start talking about things like lockout, that we're gonna get into. Before we get into that, there are a couple things that we are willing to stipulate to. And that may streamline some of the.
Okay.
Okay? For example, Mr. Brown, we don't dispute that he made the down payment. So he financed, so she would have to pay him 50% of that. He financed it, so she.
Where is that on your spreadsheet?
Of that. Well, we didn't put his figures on our spreadsheet, but we will stipulate to that number. Mr. Brown, do you have that number?
In regards
down
to
payment?
the closing costs I paid?
What you put down on the property?
Yes, I put down, let's see here.
Just want to make sure we agree on that number.
7.
And that's what it should be. Let me see what he.
It's gonna be a long morning if you can't find your
92.
down payment.
No, 92,491.78.
The down payment was down to the penny? So down payments usually like 10 grand or 50 grand.
Well, my closing costs, the closing costs, that's what I'm talking about.
So I want to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
That was the closing.
Well,
If he paid the closing costs as well, then certainly Ms. Soris is on the hook for half of that.
did you pay any of the closing costs?
I gotta look at this again, because this is the closing statement, and this says due from borrower.
Right.
So
So
that's
did you
the
pay?
number from due from borrower.
Right, from you guys, you and Mr. Brown.
Right.
Oh, had to
Well-
pay that to close on the house.
Yes, he's the borrower. So that's the number that was owed at the closing
Right,
when we purchased the house.
right. And who paid that?
It came from, he had to pay it that.
Right, so he paid it. So we want to stipulate to that. We're not,
That's correct. So he made that down payment and he did pay the closing costs. We'll stipulate to that.
All right, hold on one second. Something just weird happened on my computer.
Yes.
Could I speak to that, Your Honor? when we get a
In a moment.
We're staying.
Well,
because it did put. You're asking for the other things that aren't in there. That you'll get credit for. But that's what he gets credit for.
yeah, like this was mine,
What?
this earnest money, Harry.
Who paid that?
That was me. It's held at my brokerage.
Did you get that back? Or did they credit it towards? So you're saying this is correct except $5,000?
Yeah,
Because
because
you
when
have
you,
paid that
when you
money.
do the loan, you have to pay all the closing costs.
Right, no, I
And
understand all that.
then you pay whatever is
You
due
pay-
here.
I
But
got
this would
that.
be, this would be minus from the total amount that was
So you're
paid.
just saying you paid 5,000 of the 491.78 that was due from the borrower.
Yeah.
Is that your contention? Okay.
All right, so my client is telling me that, oh, I'm sorry, I
We're on a technical pause.
apologize.
I was going to open up a blank spreadsheet so I could keep track.
Ah, okay.
And it caused the computer to get very unhappy. So I'm trying to get it happy again.
No. I don't have any of my like Harry Norman thing because I don't work there anymore, so I don't have access to any of that. But if,
Okay. Could be, you put 5 for that, so I see that for that. Well, not what you paid it. Because it didn't, and then the seller gave it.
Well, that
credit
just-
6.
this number just should go back into the pot.
All right.
Like, because it's
So
part
far, we're
of
doing well.
what was,
He has the good sense to shut up.
so this makes the loan less. No.
She's a kook.
Now we're
She's
doing the
keeping
accounting
her
and pulling out
kookiness to her
money.
attorney. Which is
All I
what
need
you
to
do.
know is, did you pay 5,000 or did he?
I believe I did, but I don't have like
Okay,
a
okay.
record of it because I don't
Okay.
have access
So
to my
we'll
Harry
stipulate
Norman.
to 92,490. That's what he.
Maybe I spoke too soon.
What do you think his down payment was? He didn't pay 20, wasn't 20%.
No, because that's the whole number, including the closing costs and like all the prorations and everything.
Right, and somebody paid that though, so he does pay.
It's all that stuff that's on this page and he paid it.
So did everything but 5,000, so that would be total amount. Right.
Well, when they do these settlement statements, that 5,000 is already subtracted. So then when you close, you have to bring that other amount because this is already subtracted.
So if it's only subtracted, then you get an additional 5,000
Yeah.
that wasn't included there.
Yes,
So we don't
ideally,
subtract
you'd have
that
this
then.
put together.
So we did pay that, but you paid this. So you would be owed 50% of that, and you'd be owed 50% of that.
Mm-hmm.
That-
Yeah, because this is already subtracted.
Because
Because
none of
here,
this went into the original outside of. Then you were, okay,
yeah, because
so
this
then you
is,
finance the rest.
yeah.
Okay. Two.
Okay, sorry about that. So Mr. Brown, please give me the figure again, that you described as, we were talking about down payment, but I think you lumped it together. There is a down payment often, but there were closing costs as well, and that totaled some 92,000 figure.
Correct.
What is that figure?
So that's the closing cost on the down payment.
Right, what's the number?
Oh, 92,491.78.
Okay. And Ms. Roy, did you and Ms. Cerise get a chance to look at that? And that's a number you can verify and you do not contest?
We have one caveat to that. We agree that he did pay a down payment and the closing cost. Unfortunately, on the settlement statement, it doesn't segregate out what the down payment was. It doesn't lump it in with everything else. So we agreed to the 491.78.
I got 49278. Is it 491 or 492?
491.78.
491. My mistake. Okay. All right.
However, at the top of that, my client was with Harry Norman, she paid 5,000 in earnest money. So,
Did, Mr. Brown pay any earnest money?
There was, when it came to this entire,
Did you pay, my question is, did you pay any earnest money?
I paid everything when it comes to this property.
So you're saying you paid the $5,000 earnest money?
Yes. That's.
Okay.
It's all incorporated. She has no documentation to show from her bank that she's pulled $5,000 out.
Okay. Ms. Roy, what's the evidence that your client paid the 5,000 in earnest money? Other than she recalls it?
The earnest money was being held at Harry Norman Realtors where I used to be employed. And I don't have access to my Harry Norman folders and emails and accounting anymore because I don't no longer work there, but that was my former employer.
Was the 5,000 part of the 92,000? That number rolls up the 5,000 as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, if you can get evidence of it, I'll think about it. Otherwise, I'm gonna keep that on the Brown column.
okay, well, we said that it's not included in the 92,491.78, that it wasn't, it was already subtracted out.
Okay.
And so we would simply say, like, if he wants to say that he paid the 5, then we just won't stipulate, he can show his financial records as to what he paid. I mean, I was trying to streamline it.
Okay.
right? So.
No, I appreciate that. But if the 5 isn't rolled into the 92,491, then unless Mr. Brown wants to claim that he paid the earnest money, for which he'll need to provide proof because there's a dispute, his word isn't any more persuasive than Ms. Cerise. I'm going to take it on word. It's going to be either stipulation, like we're doing here, and I appreciate it, with what we're calling the down payment, or someone's got a piece of paper that says, look, here was my check or my bank statement. All right. Any other stipulations, Ms. Roy, that you're comfortable suggesting?
Okay, well, and this is a big one. And I haven't fully discussed this with my client. What I'm inclined to do is they purchased this property they started making payments October of 2019. There is a bulk of those payments, mortgage payments covered by rental income. And then they would deposit.
I'm gonna interrupt you for a second, but if I'm renting it as a Verbo, I'm not paying the mortgage. I'm cutting a check to an LLC or to Mr. Brown or to your client. So when you say the rent covered the mortgage, someone is stroking a mortgage check each month. Okay.
That's right. I want to get the big picture first because
Great.
we're willing to agree to some things in there.
Good.
So maybe we don't have to go piece by piece.
Yep.
If that's not the case, we will.
Okay.
The point being there is that a lot of that, when it washed out, there was a joint account.
Oh, meaning when it washed out that there's rent in and mortgage out, and when all is said and done, hey, there are $50 left or
Right.
whatever.
Right. But when you take that, so they had a joint account at Bank of America. The monies, maybe not all, but almost all of the rental payments were deposited into that joint account, of which they also paid their mortgage. From October of 2019, they didn't start really renting it out to 2021, but 2020 till March of 2024, let's say. We think that it's essentially a wash of 50-50. Our position is until that March 2024,
And what's the significance of March 2024?
the parties' relationship finally deteriorated to a point where he then locked her out and said he would no longer rent. As of the March 2024, our position is we no longer owe any mortgage debt or expense at that point because he refused to rent out the property at that point and locked her out.
But up to March 24, it was a 50-50 sharing, and you're saying that this account into which the rent payments went and out of which mortgage was paid kind of was close to a zero balance by then?
Well,
whatever's left really should be split 50-50.
Right, and what my point is, I mean, we'd be willing to confirm with Ms. Saris, but that when we do get granular on each one of those transactions, at the end of the day, she had covered some more payments, he had covered some more over here.
Payments meaning mortgage payments?
Mortgage payments,
Okay.
like she covered like the first three when they first bought the house out of another company that she had. But then later he had covered three that she didn't, or the more, the rent didn't cover. When you take all of that together and calculate it out, it ends up being essentially a 50-50 split during that time period.
Okay,
So it, in my estimation, was essentially a wash. Now, that is not including repairs, maintenance, anything like that.
right, you're talking about rent and mortgage, just those two categories.
Right, so that would include the escrowed amounts of property tax and insurance within that. But yes, that's what I'm talking about. If we could come to an agreement that from
Thank you.
10/2019 up till March 2024, that it's essentially 50-50 wash with respect to those figures, then we can focus on March 2024 forward and who paid what and why.
I don't have any
There.
evidence. So
Okay,
my word.
the purchase date was October 20th, 2019. That's why you said that date?
Correct.
Okay.
Or not the 20, but, well, that's
It
when you
was
started
on there.
paying the
It's on
mortgage.
there on that
Well,
closing
yeah.
disclosure.
Yeah, well, they purchased August, but you started paying.
Yeah,
October.
because you prepay.
It's
like
not
a-
on our list, so we
Yeah.
either need to.
Well, that's when the first mortgage payment was due, was
So the first,
October
they
1st.
bought it in August, but the first mortgage payment, so for purposes of the accounting, October of 2019. October 1, 2019 is when they had to start paying the mortgage payment.
Ma'am, are you a whore?
So that's the date that we're looking at, October 1, 2019.
Through March of 24.
2024.
Not talking about repairs or this or that, but stream of income in, rental, and then
Right.
mortgage, insurance, taxes out. Okay.
And that is just for Mr. Brown, so he understands where we're coming up with that. That includes, and we have all the figures that go into this, we have to go there. But that includes the fact that this rental stream of income was paying for much of the mortgage payments during that time, was able to cover a lot of it during that.
Okay. Mr. Brown, what's your view on streamlining in that way where between date of purchase through March of 24, we don't need to dive into who paid the mortgage or who benefited from the rent payments coming in?
Sir, this is very interesting, very interesting.
I just need a yes or a no.
So no. And
Okay,
so-
then that's it. We are not stipulating to that. Any other potential stipulations?
Okay.
I think you can see where this is going.
I think I do. Okay, so we have some other, we think uncontestable numbers. And that is, there was an attorney's lien asserted against Mr. Brown that was paid out of the closing funds. That number is $13,000.
When you say closing funds, meaning when this property was sold. Okay,
Correct.
got it.
That my client was not responsible for. That's $13,196.10. And that was filed with the court, so it's on record.
Okay.
Um,
Mr. Brown, any reason why Ms. Saris would be responsible for any of the attorney's lien?
No, not at all.
Okay, let me. Okay. Next,
My firm's attorney's fees,
pardon me?
my law firm's attorney's fees. Because this is a default judgment and the attorney's fees were pled
Okay,
as part of the complaint, that we're entitled to those, and I testify to those. I have the attorney's fees report with all of the detail. That's $31,817.15. And then there's an additional 2 process server fees that were paid that were not included with that. And those come to $253.
Have you shared any of your attorney's fees information with Mr. Brown?
I have them right here.
Okay, why don't you get those to him?
Okay. Your Honor, would you like a copy?
Sure. Thank you. Before we leave those from your side, why don't you make a record of your billing rate and anything you want to say about the amount you did bill?
Sure. My billing rate is $375 an hour, which is a reasonable fee and within our industry for someone who's practiced over 20 years, who in real estate litigation and also, was law review in court, all of those things that firms look at to assess you. Also, that is a reasonable rate within the metropolitan Atlanta area for an attorney bill. Our paralegal billed at $185, which is also on there, which is also a reasonable rate in metropolitan Atlanta for an experienced paralegal. As well, the reason it's $31,000 in this case was really because of a lot of the accounting going on from 2019 to current, number one, that we had to go to prepare for that initial hearing as well, but also briefing the court, then in terms of should we auction the house or not, then we had to come to the court again in an emergency hearing because Mr. Brown was not cooperating with the realtor at one point to get documents back signed because he wanted to try to buy out the property. And so we had to come to the court again for that as well. We've had to appear before this court, either by Zoom or in person for several hearings to this point. And also, go through a lot of these documents that we're going to be going through piece by piece today to marshal all of this evidence. So that is what she has paid. She has actually paid those, by the way. She's actually incurred those fees. In addition, she did pay another firm, the Kessler firm, well-known divorce family law firm that originally filed the complaint. So she's not even asking for those fees back. So really it is a little bit, it's somewhat discounted amount. But that's how we arrived at that. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about our.
I know those rates are very reasonable in the Atlanta market, and the hours are what the hours are in connection with this case. Mr. Brown, do you have any questions you want to ask Ms. Roy about her qualifications, her billing rate, or anything like that you think I need to hear the answers for in assessing whether these are reasonable attorney's fees?
My question is in regards to the emergency hearing that she drew on, that she's charging for. Did you threw on that emergency hearing, was that necessary?
According to the realtor, it was.
What's the date-ish for something like that?
I have the exhibit for you, sir. Here's a email from the realtor.
What's the date?
The date of this email is 1/30/2026. This is an email from the realtor to Ms. Roy as well. Here you go, sir.
Thank you.
So in regards to the cooperation, the buyer of the property now, he was really lowballing us, like almost 600,000. And so what I did was, you know, let me change his mindset. I told Ms. Storr, said, hey, you know, I'm working with my banks to buy this property out, which I knew would get back to the buyer. And as soon as that got back to the buyer, the price came up to where we sold it as. And at no time, at any time, did I ever say or delay the process at all for her to put an emergency hearing.
Okay. We're getting the docket here.
I can respond to that, Your Honor.
In a minute.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what most people do.
This email talks about you meeting the deadline that I had to set in the emergency order that I issued as a result of the emergency hearing. So how does this email, Mr. Brown, say that?
Well, Ms. Sandra just stated that the reason for the emergency hearing because I
That
was
says it all
operating
right there.
and she had to do emergency hearing. That was just done on her own. That email states that there's not one time that I say I wasn't going to sign the paperwork of the close or sign the paperwork to move the process down the line. She said emergency hearing. She said emergency hearing because she said that I wasn't going to sign the paperwork to get the process moved down the line. So that's the email from the actual realtor stating that.
Okay, Ms. Roy, I don't read it quite that way, but she is saying that maybe she, the realtor, made a mistake in telling you that Mr. Brown would not sign the final counteroffer.
And that's not what she communicated to me, and frankly, you know, Mr. Brown was notified of that hearing. So, I mean, my question to him would be then why didn't you show up and say, hey, this is not necessary? I said I would cooperate. Like, we had to go through all of that because you were bluffing. He told the realtor, and he stated this right now, that he wanted to buy the property. And that's exactly why we went to the court. We're like, Your Honor, he's now holding it up because he's gonna try to buy it. And that was the impression that he was giving, and that's the impression he gave to the realtor. And she's like, we've got to get this stuff signed or we're going to lose this deal. So he was whether he was bluffing and it ended up being a good thing or not, he certainly didn't communicate that to us and didn't communicate that to the court, which necessitated, all of that work and time and getting the court off the bench to hold an emergency hearing. Let's say it's true what he's saying. All he had to do then was show up or communicate that. I have no email from him.
When I see I entered an order on the 13th.
Correct.
And this email talks about the 12th and the 13th. When was the emergency conference that Mr. Brown did not attend?
The 13th.
Okay.
And this email is dated the 30th.
Now I see when it's dated, it's Ms. Storer
Right.
saying, look, I miscommunicated to you what was going on with Mr. Brown. I said he wasn't going to sign and that was not accurate. That doesn't mean you didn't have a reason to reach out to me, but then it seems like we ought to bill Ms. Storer for your fees as opposed to Mr. Brown for your fees.
Well, but he went and had her do this on January 30th. Well, that's not helpful when you had to sign those documents before.
So your point is there was email traffic from Ms. Niles to both sides saying, hey, you got to get together with the judge because there's this allegation coming from plaintiff's side that Mr. Brown is refusing to sign.
Right.
And Mr. Brown never piped up saying, what are you talking about? I'm not refusing. Where'd you get that notion? Answer, the realtor was mistaken. And so that could have
Absolutely.
avoided the need for the hearing.
Absolutely, because that's the impression he gave to her at the time, which was then communicated to me, and we didn't want the deal to be blown. It was really important because the deal was gonna be blown. She was saying, he's telling me he wants to buy the property now. And I'm like, why is he doing that at this late date? And that's when we had to communicate with the court, and the court did give him an opportunity at that point. So, okay, well, if you want to buy it, then here are the deadlines. But he imposed that here, instead of just signing the document. So whether that was a bluff so he could get more money, that's great, but you gotta communicate that to us,
Okay.
or else we're gonna act accordingly.
All right, well, I'll take that under advisement. I've got the billing entries that relate to the time, Ms. Roy, that you spent concerning the seeming breakdown in will there be a signature or not. So that's readily identifiable, and if I need to back it out, I'll back it out.
Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
We are, first of all, when it comes to, I didn't know anything about a hearing, emergency hearing. And if I did on that date, I couldn't attend because I'm in surgeries. And so I don't have access to a phone. I have access to I'm actually in surgeries. And so even if it was that date, I couldn't attend. I was in a CHD surgery.
Okay.
Cardiac surgery. And so on top of that, when the realtor asked, you have a deadline to sign this at an X time. And I met that deadline. So regardless of the timeline of what she's saying, there was a deadline of the time to sign the document. And during that time, yes, I did bring, because like I said, at that time, the buyer was trying to give us $600,000 for the property at that time. The buyer was saying, I'm giving you $600,000. I said, okay, let's change his motivation. I'm gonna go refinance this property. Hey, Sandra, I'm gonna refinance this property, and buy it. And so this is all a 24-hour time span. This is not past the deadline. This is not anything past the deadline. This is all in the window of the deadline.
Okay, I'm following you. Like I said, I'm going to take it under advisement and figure out whether I'm going to include that little piece of the larger bill or not. Anything else about the attorney's fees that you want to ask Ms. Roy about?
Well, I don't feel I should pay any attorney fees because this was something that she brought on, that she wanted to get a lawyer. While we're together and when we broke up, I told her, hey, I'll buy you out on this property. I'll pay you double or triple of the amount that you put into the property. And even when this was filed, this was initially filed as we were married. That initial paperwork that was actually filed to the courts through the Kessler law firm, that paperwork was actually filed as we were married. And so with that being said,
They were never made.
but that's how the paperwork was filed.
Okay.
And so as far as me paying her lawyer fees, we would have been in front of you anyways, paying fees, just like I had a lawyer. So she brought this lawsuit on for something that we could have worked out together, but this is her action. So I feel I should have to pay lawyer fees because we have to do this anyways.
Okay, got it. Anything else about attorney's fees?
No, sir.
All right. Ms. Roy, other items on plaintiff's side. So we've covered what we're calling the down payment. There's an attorney's lien, attorney's fees. We're gonna have to come back to rent and mortgage.
Right? Okay, we have another issue. The failure to provide access after the court order of July the 3rd. This court entered an order on July the 3rd saying that, and I quote from the order, from the date of entry of this order of July 3rd until 2025, until the property is sold, both parties shall have equal and full access to the property and all of its structures. For each day or portion thereof, and one party excludes the other from access to the property, the excluded party will receive a credit of 1,000 for each of those days to the account. Now, my client attempted to access the property on July the 11th.
First.
Oh, July 5th at first? No,
Yes,
okay,
July.
July 5th. And could not get in, and she was with the Realtor.
Yes.
And she has a video of it where they approach the gate, it's closed, it's locked, the code doesn't work, remote doesn't work, she can't get in. I emailed opposing counsel on July the 11th. I have that email. In fact, I have a folder. I emailed opposing counsel on July the 11th and I said, this is the court's order. My client hasn't been able to access the property. Today's July 11th. She still cannot get in the property. He said, I'll reach out to my client. Later that afternoon, he emailed me and he said that the gate was broken, and that she could just wedge herself through it. He couldn't do that. And that his client would be down there, to have somebody look at it. And
At this point, assuming the gate worked, are there still dogs there or the dogs are gone? Am I remembering correctly? At one point, you had another business.
Just have canine business.
Okay, but there weren't, the dogs were gone by July of 2025?
Dogs were gone. When this got hung up in the courts, I pulled the dogs off the property.
Okay,
in relevant part, the lawyer says, while not our client's legal responsibility, he is making arrangements to send someone over to the property this afternoon to attempt to disengage the gate and motor. That was July 11th.
Mhm.
My email to him, my email to him was actually dated the day before, July 10th. Let me reiterate that. Since I said since July 5th, my client and her proposed realtor have been trying to access the property. As we stated during the hearing, Saris is locked out of the property by the gate. Since she moved out, her code has never worked, nor does remote. Given the court's order on July 3rd, she assumed your client would comply with the court's order, but that has not occurred. Please confirm in writing how your client has fixed the gate or left it unlocked, or provide her with a proper code and a remote so she can access it. Please note my client has a video of herself and the realtor unable to gain access via the gate. We will assume that she does not have access until we receive in writing from you what has been done to remedy the matter, as we cannot keep having her drive down there with a realtor or contractor without such information. That is the only email I got on July 11th from Patrick Dodson, his counsel, saying that afternoon he'll send somebody down there to disengage. And then we never heard from them. The realtor was able to gain access as of July 16th. So we calculated.
how,
She had provided her keys and she lives in the area. So she would go every day and check to see if the gate was disengaged. And she was not able to access the property until July 16th.
right, but what was different on the 16th?
I guess Mr. Brown had.
What, the gate would open or there was no gate? How
the
did this
gate-
person bring a rope and climb over or?
We assume that Mr.
I don't want you to assume that Mr. Brown did anything. He may not have, someone else may have, but what was different on the 16th so that the realtor could get in? Did the
was
gate open? The gate was open. Okay.
And I have her email from the realtor that.
So gate open on July 16th, but it was July 5th was the first day that you went and could not get in.
Correct.
All right.
Your Honor,
Mr. Brown, well, hold on. Anything more on the violation of the July 3rd order?
No.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Brown.
Your Honor, just to revisit, there's the talk about not being able to access the property, and I denied them access to the property. That is total false. Proof of that she had access to the property is she actually went to the property during all this time and took all the furniture out of the property that we purchased jointly. She cleared the entire property out, the part that she cleared out the house of all the property, of all the furniture. And during this time, she
Oh.
claimed she doesn't have access to the property. And there's
That-
not any time I've
true.
ever denied her access to that property.
What's your evidence that, and I know you may not know the specific day, but between July 5th and July 16th, that's when Ms. Ceres took furniture from the property?
I have, no, it was before that.
Okay, but
Yeah, so-
what we're talking about right now is that as of July 5th, Ms. Ceres couldn't get in. And you're saying you disagree with
That's
that.
not true. She can get
So
in-
let's watch the video.
She can get in the property anytime she wants, and she knows that.
I
Video, please.
I don't have the link.
Let me send the
I
link.
have it on my computer and I can
Okay?
show.
Nope, but I'll share the link.
Okay. Thank you. Let me get on, it would help if I was on the internet.
See, the gate has been broken like, I don't know for how long. And so you can actually just push the gate open enough for anybody to get through it. There's even a time where she.
You have the link. Ms. Niles emailed it to you, so I don't know if you just got it or you got it before, but that's on you to find.
I probably didn't pay attention since I knew we were coming in. So
Okay.
I didn't have focused on that.
And Your Honor, here's the text messages from my neighbor that actually opened, that took the motor off the gate, because you can get in the gate, but she actually, because we've done this before, and Angie knows, we had this problem with the Airbnb. Someone came in, the gate didn't work properly, and we had to disengage the entire arm. And so also, I want to say this before the study started. Please, because you're going to see as we go through this, please provide sanctions when you see that there's been false documents presented to you, false numbers presented to you, and also false statements presented to you. Please keep this in mind.
Okay?
And so Angie said July 17th.
I didn't hear about July 17th. July 5th, couldn't get in. The
16th.
16th, someone was able to get in.
And so when I was aware, my lawyer made me aware that he couldn't get in. That was the week of hold on, let me get my phone. It was like a Thursday or Friday. And I said, okay, no problem. I was like, they can push to the gate, but I'll get my neighbor, next door neighbor.
Hold on 1 second. Give me 1 second. I'm back. All right.
I told I get my next door neighbor Grace to open it, which she did. Here's a text message, and she even, because she knows what I'm dealing with, she even took a picture of it to make sure that we can document this for courts.
So as long as you've got a copy for Ms. Roy, you're welcome to give me a copy.
I got it. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you, sir.
I don't see any dates on here. Do you have?
Yeah, you have any dates?
Yep, if you look right here, it'll say July 12th. Where you.
Oh, yeah, at the very end. Got it. Yeah.
Sorry, here now, which side is the pin on? And that's a picture, it's kind of broken up, so it wouldn't print out on one page.
Yeah.
It's actually the arm of the gate being dislodged. So you can just push in and push out fully by like getting the vehicle in. So prior to that, you couldn't get a vehicle in, but you can get your body in, because it's an old gate. And you can get your body in the gate, but you couldn't get a vehicle in the gate prior to that pin. But this has always been an issue with our gate. But the reason why the gate was closed is because it's on 17 acres. I'm an hour away, and I didn't want squatters to come in on the property. And so I wasn't gonna leave the gate just prop wide open, you know, because that's just safety to have somebody, you know, be in secluded area like that. Lights always being off, that's a perfect opportunity for someone to come in and squat. So that's the only reason why the arm is on the gate. But I've
Okay.
never denied her access to the property ever.
I am a little confused as this is a text. This isn't with my client though.
No, he said it's a text with the neighbor, and he asked the neighbor, you can read the text, to pull some pin out and push the gate open. This would have been on the 12th, not the 5th or the 6th or the 7th or the 8th, but on the 12th.
What year? What year is this text?
And I can pull it up on my phone.
Pull it up, let's just make sure it's in 2025. I just wanna make sure because and I don't know, I mean, that still gets the body in, but that doesn't get the vehicle in, so you can go, you know, do what you need to do with.
That gets the vehicle in, that means the arm on the gate is wide open.
So you guys don't talk to each other, you talk to me, and did you
Oh.
get the Zoom link? And are you on Zoom so we can watch this video?
I can show you the video, but it's not letting me connect to the internet, so the link is not helping me.
Okay,
But I do have the video, which I'm happy to show him first and they can approach the bench with.
I don't know how that's gonna work. So if you can't figure out how to plug into Zoom, we'll not use the video.
Okay, let me try that.
I have my computer too.
See if you can get on the
try.
internet then, because it's not letting me on the internet.
So the gist of your contention is there was an 11-day period when your client didn't have access subsequent to my order. Order says must have access, didn't have access. You notified counsel. Counsel said, not really my client's problem, but ultimately the realtor on the 16th said, look, I can get in. It may be that on the 12th, if we're talking about the same year, which would be 2025, Mr. Brown got a neighbor to open the gate. And access doesn't mean you have to squeeze your body through. Access means you could drive a car onto the property. So on the 12th, maybe access had been provided, although I don't know how, Ms. Roy, you were supposed to know that access had been provided on the 12th because Mr. Brown's lawyer didn't reach out to you to say, hey, he got a neighbor to pull a pin out of the arm of the gate, and now the gate is open for someone to drive on in. Since it's 17 acres, we shouldn't assume people are going to have to walk the 17 acres to do what they're going to do on the property, especially if they are a co-owner of the property.
Well, thank you. Yes, that's exactly right. And I have the email from opposing counsel, I give Mr. Brown a copy as well as you to show. I asked for that specifically in writing so we would know, and I never got that.
Okay,
So-
the way your client learned is the realtor, her
She just.
potential realtor on the 16th said, hey, I was able to get in, the gate's open. And this may show us how and why the gate became open. All right.
Correct. And if I can approach, I can give Your Honor those.
And I was
email.
never aware of the time, when I was aware that the gate needed to be open, it was a couple days prior. It wasn't that, I was not aware of it from that time on, because it wasn't an issue for me, just simply I would have told my neighbor at that time to pull a pin from the gate.
All right. That's a you and your lawyer thing. If your lawyer wasn't letting you know what the other side was asking for, I'm not saying you were necessarily aware. I entered an order, and your lawyer was aware of what that order said and what it required. You and your lawyer clearly had some disagreement because he quit and he's filed a lien on you. So you can talk with them about it. My order was real clear. Black and white in English, what needed to happen. It didn't happen. At the 12th, maybe it happened, but between the 6th or the 5th and the 12th, it hadn't happened. Okay. Yeah, but I will take those, please, as long as Mr. Brown gets a copy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, I'm on the internet.
Do you have a copy of this video on your computer?
Phone, can you just forward me?
While you're doing that forwarding and whatnot, what's our next topic on your side?
Okay. Mr. Brown stopped paying the mortgage altogether, so regardless of who's responsible for it, he stopped paying the mortgage. And the mortgage went into default. And, we believe my client's not on the mortgage, so, we're not exactly sure, but, I think we can find, well, we can find the information, but it was from October, we'll see if he has something to say in response, but from October 2025 until February 2026, the mortgage was in default and no payments were made on the first mortgage or the second mortgage. So, you know,
There were two mortgages on the property?
there was a HELOC that was acting as a second mortgage that there were only interest payments being made on it. In fact, that original loan amount was less than what the payoff was at closing. So, yes, there was.
And when you are contending that Mr. Brown stopped paying the mortgage, it was both the actual mortgage and then interest payments on the HELOC?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So he is not entitled to the extent he seeks any reimbursement from my client, he's not entitled to it. If he didn't pay the mortgage.
That's fair. I mean, Mr. Brown, I trust is going to have documentation of mortgage payments he made. And if he doesn't have documentation for, I'm making it up, May 2022, then he doesn't get credit for May 2022.
So, other than expenses, which we'll have to go through one by one with my client, those are the things that we feel are not contestable by him, that those are.
Okay. And this last one isn't so much not contestable as he ought not to be saying, wait, I should get credit for November 25 mortgage payment because your understanding is there was no such payment made. No one should get credit for a payment they didn't make. Okay.
And then, I mean, we're also arguing the Astor argument from that March 2024 date
Getting married.
till closing, I mean, till the property was sold, that she doesn't know him for any of those payments, and we'll get into that.
Okay. Mr. Brown, are there any things that you think everyone ought to stipulate to?
It's kind of, what do you mean by that, stipulation?
Sure. Well, an example was Ms. Roy said this 92,491. Mr. Brown paid that, so you don't need to prove it. And Ms. Cerise needs to she needs to pay half of that. And the way she pays half of that is she gets less out of what's sitting in the registry. She said that we need to fight that. That's clear. And so I'm asking you, do you have anything that you think ought to be as clear as that?
Meaning in my numbers per se?
That's what we're working on is numbers. And so if there's a category you're thinking of, like, hey, you know what? A meteorite hit the roof of the house in 22 and everyone knows that Mr. Brown alone paid for the new roof, then you should flag that and say, look, I spent $32,000 to put a new roof on it. And Ms. Cerise may say, oh, I forgot about that one. That was all you. That was a contribution you made.
Perfect. All right. So in regards to the mortgage, in regards to this entire property, and I think this is very important for you to know, as this property started, this was the investment property for both of us to be equal investors in. How she even became on the deed is I got swindled pretty good. When we were dating, so obviously that was the part of me, I just let things go. However, the deal was on this property, on the day of closing, she was supposed to go half on the closing costs for us to be equal partners. During the closing, when I didn't get the money from her, thinking
Okay.
that, you know,
They
she'll
stipulated
give it to
that.
me. I put her on the deed,
Let it
and then as
go.
soon as things go through, oh, no, I'm not gonna do that. I need a lawyer to go. So that's how, so the reason I say this is because this property will be an equal, straight down the line, anything we pay, we split on. That's how this property was supposed to be. And so with that being said, we'll start with the mortgage payments.
Okay.
out of pocket, the entire out of pocket of mortgage that I paid to this property. And what they don't tell you is that
Hold on one sec.
Well, I'm on the Zoom.
You got to mute.
Okay.
All right.
what they're not telling you is, can you please mute that? Lawyers, you know.
I've muted my computer.
In Zoom, you have to turn the audio off as well. You get it? Not yet.
Audio.
So
Just wait. Let me see if I can help on the Zoom side. Nope, there you did it. Okay. So mortgage.
the mortgage. So throughout the entirety of the mortgage, I end up carrying more of the mortgage. It was never a split 50-50 is my point.
Okay.
And
But this is where this shakes out. So I need you to show me what documentation you have for the amounts you paid for the mortgage.
so for the mortgage, out of pocket, I paid $292,881, $881.63.
So I need you said the number in a funny way. Read it again. Yeah.
881.63.
881.63. And that's from the first payment you made to whenever the last payment was you made.
So, yeah, whether it was split, whether it was, so I can even show you here. I have the payments from every single month, whether it was Airbnb split, full payment, half payment, it's all right here. And I have
Okay.
here for the client as
Great.
well.
Why don't you hand it out and then I can ask questions.
I think we should get the original loan amount on the record as well as what the payment was at closing. Because I think there was only like $20,000 paid down in equity.
Okay.
Number one.
And here's every bank, the like withdrawal, I have a breakdown for you as every single, I have a breakdown for you as for every single mortgage payment. What I paid, was Airbnb part of it? Did we split it? So you have a clarification. And if you keep on the other pages, it'll actually show you the actual bank deductions out of my account for this.
Got it. Okay.
And one thing that I want to clarify is why I say bring sanctions to the board about false documents. Ms. Cerise is claiming that the first 3 mortgages were totally paid through her, totaling $8,000. They submitted this to myself and to the courts as a false document. So Ms. Cerise, 10/1, 10/31, and 12/10. Ms. Cerise says she paid out her Chase bank account $2,745 3 times, totaling $8,236. If you look at my,
Where is this thing you're saying?
she'll get it to you. There's this one right here. This one right here. This to me in this courts. This.
That was from Discovery.
Okay. That's not in front of me now. Okay.
We haven't submitted
Was
it.
part of her calculation of her documents.
Well, I don't know. This is, you got this. This kind of looks like a spreadsheet. This is what their submissions are for purposes of this hearing. What you may have received earlier in Discovery, I don't know. And that's not before me.
So her discovery.
So don't get hung up on that. If she says today, hey, I should get 3 months of credit for mortgage for those months, and you can show me that that's not accurate, then that's an issue for a plaintiff.
So to show you that's not accurate, if you look here, if you look at my first 3 statements, you'll see $1,800. That's going half on that mortgage. And you'll also see the $1,800 coming out of my bank account, going half on that mortgage.
Okay. All right. Ms. Roy, you wanted to get a couple of facts in about the amount of the mortgage.
Yeah, I think we need to start, so we were organized here because we're getting in the weeds really fast.
Yeah.
Let's start with the original loan amount, which
And the mortgage is with whom? What is the entity?
It changed a number of times. I think it ended up being Rocket Mortgage.
Oh, that's not helpful. Okay.
But it was Brand, then Wells Fargo, then Mr. Cooper, then Rocket.
Okay.
Um,
What was the original mortgage amount?
so it was 468,500, I believe. The purchase price was 610. We had an original principal amount of 468,500. But the pay, now this is so important because of this amount that he's saying that he paid in. The original principal is 468,500. The payoff to Rocket Mortgage at closing was 426,617.46. Okay, that's the first mortgage. The second number for us to get a hold of is the original principal amount of the second mortgage HELOC with Capital City Homes.
50,000.
That was $50,000 was the original principal. The payoff at closing was more than the principal. It was $51,227.01. So that paints a very different picture. I know there's a lot of interest on new mortgages, but that paints a very different picture.
Okay.
Your Honor, it's kind of really simple that whatever she's disputing, I actually have the bank statements with the money being withdrawn. So whatever picture she wants to paint, the documentation is here that the money came out of my account and it went to the mortgage. So whatever she's trying to paint, the documentation from every single withdrawal from my account going to, and the numbers all match up to that as well. And this number, the 292, this is also including the taxes on the property that I paid in full at one point. It also includes the closing cost as well. And you see, so you can see exactly where that number is coming from.
So I'm curious, let's just take two examples
Yes, sir.
from what you handed me. If we look at November 23, December 23, and then for some reason, there's not a mortgage payment until April of 24. Sure why. But those numbers are all different. And I don't know, my mortgage is the same number every month for 30 years.
Which one? What year?
So I'm looking at the cover sheet that you put on here.
Correct.
There's something you typed up, so it's not a bank statement.
Correct.
And the November 23 amount is almost $4,200. The December 23 amount, which looks like it's paid a little off cycle because it's the middle of December, it is less than that. And then there's no mortgage amount until April. But when we get to that April amount, it is a number that pops up many more times. My question is not what happened with the January, February, and March mortgage payment. If you didn't pay it, you didn't pay it. But why are these numbers all different? I'm familiar with a mortgage being the same number, the monthly payment for basically 30 years.
Probably because there was some Airbnb that was added to it possibly, or, you know, maybe someone stayed for a couple of days and we threw it in there. You know, that if the number's different, that's why it would be different. If it's like
Well, that explains it for earlier entries. That's why I didn't ask about them. Your entry for February of 23, March of 23, April of 23, it all says less Airbnb. And so I get it. That's a lower number, but you don't have any of those parentheticals starting with September 23 onward. It is, as best I can understand, just money straight out from you. And sometimes it's the same number, which is what I'm familiar with. And then sometimes it's a different number. I'm just curious why your mortgage payments are changing.
not really sure.
Okay. But what you are saying is, there is a check or a bank statement entry that corresponds to each of those.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
In regards to not paying, the time I didn't pay, because at the end of the day, we were supposed to be splitting this. You know, and here I am covering all this, and their reasoning of not paying the mortgage because she was locked out. That's her reason. But she She was still paying the light bill. She was still paying Northeast Exterminators. She was paying the small numbers. And
Okay,
so,
so you don't dispute whatever amounts those are, she paid.
as long as she has receipts for them, not at all.
Okay. And Ms. Roy, are you disputing that Mr. Brown was making these mortgage payments, or what is, I mean, you've pointed out that the payoff amount was kind of close to the mortgage amount, but depending on how high the interest rate was and how many years the mortgage was, it is kind of ugly math the first few years, because your monthly payments are 90% interest and not a whole lot of principal. So,
And the biggest problem is.
you know what, I was the one who was talking right at that moment. The fact that the delta between the mortgage amount and the payoff isn't so great, we're not 20 years into the mortgage.
Okay, so the first,
So I'm more focused on, do you have a reason or a basis for contesting the amounts that Mr. Brown said he's paying?
I do, because first of all, the mortgage was paid not from his SunTrust account, which is this, it was paid, right, from the Bank of America account.
It was mostly paid from the Bank of America
But-
joint account where the rental income was being deposited, and then there was payments coming out of that joint account directly to the mortgage company. And we have the bank records for that. There was probably some payments that may have come out of his SunTrust account at certain points in time, but that was not the majority of where the payments came out.
I'm not noticing, Mr. Brown, any Bank America statements in here. What you've attached is SunTrust. Was there a Bank America account?
There was a Bank of America account.
Okay,
So when we had the Bank of America account, I would still transfer money from my SunTrust account to the Bank of America account if the mortgage came up short.
okay.
So if Airbnb paid the full mortgage, you wouldn't see any transactions, but you don't see any transactions for X amount of months. So that's why you don't see transactions.
Got it. When you aren't saying, hey, here's some money I paid, that's because Bank America had enough in it for the mortgage to be paid.
Yes, sir.
Got it. Okay, that makes much more sense.
And additionally, I mean, my client, when you co-own a property together, she is entitled to credit for half of those rental payments. So we have from Airbnb and from Verbo what those were.
Okay,
They total,
did you do, so Mr. Brown spent a fair amount of time compiling his math. And I'm curious if Ms. Roy, you or Ms. Cerise did some work on, here's money coming in from VRBO, here are mortgage payments coming out. The most anyone, whether it's Mr. Brown or Ms. Cerise, would have had to contribute to top things off to cover the mortgage payments would be, make up a number, $10,000, which is very different from our big, bold, highlighted $248,000. And that seems like math that you could do without input from Mr. Brown, because you'd have the Bank America account and here's money coming in. And look at that. Each month for a long time, the Verbo payments exceeded the mortgage cost.
And Your Honor,
We have all
now
that.
this is also something.
we do have that math, but
Okay,
Also something that's the issue. So when we broke up, and I have all this as well. Before we broke up, all Airbnb went directly to our joint account. When we broke up, all of a sudden now Airbnb and VRBO are done off the books. Meaning she's getting Airbnb, and also I filed a complaint with VRBO also, that they were dealing with her as well. But she's taking, so people call her on Airbnb or VRBO.
The books.
Hey, we want to rent.
One
Hey,
appointment,
let's talk
which
offline.
we discussed.
And so she was doing this offline. And so and you will see, I have it documented where now Airbnb and VRBO is going to her own account, and she's shifting money from that over to the joint account. And I asked her over and over, and can I please have access to Airbnb and VRBO? She would never give me access to it. So you will see Airbnb, when we're together, is great. When we broke up, now it's offline. And so that's where, and so what I would like to see, I would like to see the actual VRBO, Airbnb numbers and make sure they add up.
I would too.
All right.
May I say something
Wait.
about what Mr. Brown said?
Hang on one second.
Let's let Ms. Roy talk for a little bit.
We have an accounting directly from Verbo and Airbnb for all of the money that they paid out on the rental of those properties,
Great.
along with a chart as to adding all of those amounts up after they took out their fees and taxes. Which
Excellent.
net fee after fees and taxes from rental income, for which my client
Were they
That's
ever married?
50% credit, was $122,848
How's she
and
getting money out of
92
it?
cents. And if we could approach the bench, we will give you the printouts. Here's what's important to note about.
And that figure is a consolidation of Verbo and Airbnb.
Correct. So
Okay.
all rental income that my client received, I think she said except one person who did not go through them or
Yeah, only
was,
one.
and it was one person out of this entire.
And that was the
So what's the theory of
$1,000.
And that
recovery?
was $1,000. So,
I don't
you know,
get
if he
it.
wants 500 of that, he can have 500 of that.
Well, you should
That
get
was
it.
Deposited into the Bank of
Contributions
America.
to
And that was
money back,
deposited
for
in joint
sure.
account anyway.
Okay.
But
What's the, I know I'm interrupting you, but this Bank America account that was the joint account,
yes.
what's its status today?
Status is the account is still open.
Okay.
Is there any money in it?
There's like $3 in it.
Oh, okay. I thought, hey, if there's $80,000 in that, we have a way to address some of these issues.
But here's-
$3 won't cover it.
No, sadly, no. Here's what's important to note about our accounting of the rental.
Just give her the money and get out.
Uh,
You gotta.
is that-
man.
The accounting goes from all the way through 2025. And as Mr. Brown already stated to the court today, my client came to the property in October of 2024, after he said, and we have this in writing, we'll get to that. You're not renting it out anymore. I'm taking care of the mortgage. It's my house. I got my dogs there. You know, beware. I'd hate for an accident to happen because nobody can stop them except me.
That's not true,
So-
Lauren. I showed the
We'll
documentation.
get.
Okay, like we discussed, no objections. Let them talk and then you'll get a chance.
We'll get to that, but so it's important to note here, his allegation is it was still being rented out, it was being rented off books. But there wasn't, once they broke up, to our knowledge, as supported by this accounting, and our allegation of waste, because he wouldn't let it be rented out, it was not being rented out. So that important date of March of 2024, when she was kicked out, I'm looking at these, and you can see here, on these accountings for those years, that after that date, there's little to no activity at all, no rent on either one of these ledgers.
She took the furniture.
So because he wouldn't let it be rented out, which created waste. So our argument is this: we have the proof from the source of what that income was that was generated, and I have a copy for Mr. Brown as well as the court.
Great.
A client's entitled to 50% of that. It was not rented out beyond that breakup lockout period, which under the partition statute, it constitute waste. You'll see, we will present evidence, which I know, Mr. Brown, you object to this, I understand, but we'll present evidence that he locked her out. He refused to have it rented out anymore. He had this attack dog business he was using it for and or going to be using it for. Therefore, we don't owe you then for half of the mortgage as of that date, because one, that's waste, frankly, because the mortgage in a large part was being covered by the rental. And two, you know, we dispute what he says, that it was not being rented out and it was not being done off books. But we will provide the court with a copy of that as well as Mr. Brown.
Great.
Um,
So in regards to the reason why I said, which I have documentation for, the reason why I said I didn't want her to rent the property out is because she wouldn't give me access to Airbnb and VBRO so I can make sure I know what's going on with the people staying there. That's exactly why I said, until you give me access to Airbnb and VRBO, we're not going to rent this house out because I need to know first of all, who's on the property. And for some reason, they want to keep demeaning my dog business. I don't have deranged dogs running around.
You
Actually,
don't need to worry about that. You don't need to defend I'm a big dog fan and,
listen, my dogs are on the back of the property. So the property is 17 acres. My dog's on the back end of the 17 acres. And just so you know, Fulton County K-9 unit use my property. I work with them and all the sheriffs. So my business is very reputable. So there's no dogs running around.
okay.
There's no one's
It
gonna
does sound like you wouldn't want to meet these dogs under the wrong circumstances, but there's nothing wrong with that. So I'm not concerned or alarmed by the dogs.
Well, she's saying that she couldn't get on the property because of my vicious dog.
She's saying those words.
Exactly.
She is, and you are saying words saying that it's fraud and deceit. And this is a good preview. I'm going to join the family division in a few months, and I'm getting a nice workout through you guys.
I'm in that as well. We're in that right now as we speak.
I am gonna
Oh,
really
boy.
enjoy my time there.
Hope they stream that.
So,
Good content.
Ms. Roy, you were saying that, and I guess what I'd like now maybe is to focus on this a little bit, that what you're alleging is a lockout, which doesn't mean that there's a actual big padlock and this and that, but that was basically effective March 24.
March of 2024,
Okay.
correct? She had been paying her portion of the deficit of any mortgage up until that time
It's not true.
that the rent was not covering. And we have an accounting that we can present to the court
Okay.
as well. If we're are we getting in the lockout now? Are we gonna get in the nitty gritty of that? Because I've got,
Well, I think we need to.
I
So
wanna go there now. I've got text messages. We're gonna get into our text messages.
Okay. But we might as well, because if there is,
Program.
if I find there is a lockout, the math in some ways becomes simpler.
Oh, right.
If I find there's not a lockout, then we need to slog through some things. But it really, if there is a lockout, then what happened after March 24 in terms of expenses really isn't all that. We don't need to do a whole lot of accounting for that.
Okay, all right. If the court wants to swear in a witness, but I'm gonna have my client testify.
No, I think we should. I'll let Deputy Gordon do that. So if you will come on up to the witness stand, please.
Did you bring your phone with in case we need that,
Okay.
if you would?
You swear affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth of God.
Yes.
You have a seat. When you say this your name,
Angeliki Saris.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Saris, you've heard that we are contending that Mr. Brown effectively locked you out of this rental property that you own together. Starting in, I said March of 2024 because that's when the next payment was due. It was really kind of Valentine's Day, which is one of the reasons you remember it, of 2024. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And why don't you tell the court, I'm gonna hand you the document and I'll have a copy for the court of Mr. Brown as well, that you prepared, and so you can refer to it. Like regarding the timeline here, in your narrative about that experience.
Is there any text messages that
If you would, There will be,
Okay.
there will be. If you would, why don't you,
Do you have a copy for me?
I do. I think you might have, that's okay. Ms. Stars, why don't you go ahead and just start?
I have another copy on my,
I
you
see.
can give to me. I can give this.
Okay. Thank you.
So just walking you through it, tell the board what happened in February of 2024.
So, as you mentioned, after Valentine's Day, February 2024, Winfred and I, we officially ended our relationship, resulting in an argument that we had over the booking at the rental property. He was upset that I had booked some people to stay there. He claimed he had a dog event and there was going to be a conflict of interest regarding him having his dog event and us renting the property. He blew up at me and said, "This is the end. We're not, trying to work out a relationship anymore." And then proceeded to send me the messages that are noted here on the timeline regarding locking me out of the property and talking about paying the mortgage himself.
So that's when that started, it's mid-February 2024, he's having a dog event, he doesn't want to rent out the property at that point.
Yes, but you never let me know about the dog event. And then I booked the property for a rental, which would contribute to paying the mortgage on the property. And he got upset about that and our relationship was officially over at that point.
I'm gonna show you a document you provided me. Tell the court, if you would, the date on that document and what it purports to be.
You,
Says it is from February 17th, 2024, and these are text messages between Mr. Brown and myself.
We received those text messages, and you still have those text messages, in.
Yes, I still have them in my phone.
Okay, and if you would read to me, let's start with the February 17th, 2024 text message, when you do that. And that is it's from him to you, or between, an exchange between the two.
Yes, so he says, my buddy can't assist me until he gets off, so I will be locking the gate. I say, if you do lock them in or out, and this is referring to our guests that would be staying at the house who are paying rent, I will have to call the sheriff to break open the gate. Do you realize that? He says, I will also go out there tonight to lock the gate. The internet is about to be cut off and I'm going down there to close the gate. I will go out there and lock and close the gate today and will give 2 fucks about who is there and stuff.
Okay, and then did he text you the day after that?
And then.
who's Grace?
That's my next door neighbor.
Is that the person who undid the gate?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead and read
Okay,
it.
and then
Go
the
ahead and
next
read it.
one I say, you fail to realize that I rented the house to benefit both of us. When the house is rented, we both don't have to pay over $4,000 for the mortgage. You should be thanking me. You're creating events on the property without my knowledge and refuse to give me the dates. So you are the one doing things behind my back and keeping secrets.
Okay, and when it changes the date, tell us what the date is and then read the text if you would.
The next ones are from the next text.
Yes.
Okay, so this is continuing
Continuing that same chain.
to June of 2024. So the message,
Wasn't there a text message on February 18th, 2024 about real soon, I won't need you to help, I'll pull the mortgage myself?
I don't think that.
I have
it's in
money to pay the
order.
mortgage.
Yes, I don't think that's in order on this.
Is it out of order?
It's out of order, but I can read it. 218. Text message between us.
Okay,
Winfred says, real soon,
I won't need your help to be able to pay the mortgage myself. I have money to pay the mortgage. I said, good for you, then go ahead and start paying it. Don't talk to me anymore about paying it. Winfred says, you will be phased out very soon and I will carry the full mortgage without you. This was on the very next day on February 18th of 2020.
Okay, and then there's another text on February 18th, as I understand it, saying, he's saying, I'm never selling.
Yes, because we ended our relationship, I asked him to amicably sell the property, in a normal way, through, the normal real estate market, not through the court. And he says, I'm never selling. We'll probably die first anyways, LOL. You will be just like your mom, diabetic, the short lifespan. Hope you find someone to take care of you, LOL. Like I told you, that property is for all 3 of my kids. It is for them to choose what they want to do.
Okay, and then is the next text then not until June of 2024? Is that right, June 11th?
The next relevant text regarding the lockout.
Okay. Is the Greystone Power just called, you're telling him Greystone Power called in June of
Beautiful, isn't it?
2024? But for the court's record, did you go onto the property between this? Were you
No.
able to go onto the property from February 2024 until June of 2024?
No,
You weren't. Why not?
because he had locked the gate.
So talk me through, when you say lock the gate, I understand what those words mean, but could you just walk around the left or walk around the right? Or is there a fence? Like, why is the gate being locked such a barrier to entry?
There's a fence that goes around the whole property. And as he mentioned before, he was operating his attack dog business on the property. And I never knew when the dogs would be running around on the property. And I didn't want to take any chances.
No, I wouldn't either. The way he describes them, they hit anything that only Grace and he can control them, and your name's not Grace, so I could see why you wouldn't. But this gate plus fence means it's not, I just want to make sure we're not creating a silliness of there's this nice aesthetic gate.
Right,
But if you simply took 2 steps to your left, you could walk around it and you're on the driveway. That wouldn't keep the dog in or dogs, so that doesn't make a lot of sense. But I just wanted to confirm the gate being closed means you could climb over something, and we know that's doable because Grace, the neighbor, and Mr. Brown's text said, I had to climb over. You're going to see my sneaker prints on something. You could climb over, but unless you could also lob your pickup truck over if you needed to drive in there to bring something heavy or to collect something, or if you were going to stay there, you couldn't get your vehicle in. So then my next question is, since it's 17 acres, is the house 4 feet from the gate? So you could see, or it's a winding road and.
House is in the very middle of the property. So there's 17 acres, so divide that by 2, it's probably like 8 acres away in the middle of the properties where the house is.
If you're standing at the gate, can you see the house?
You can see the house.
It's just far away.
Yes.
So you could say, hey, it's on fire. I can see the flame, but you couldn't, with a hose from the gate, put the fire out. Okay.
It's a long walk from the gate to the house.
And I am connected now too. The
Okay.
internet and the Zoom, all of it. And we have a picture and a video of that, if that helps support, understand kind of this, the setup. of-
Let's do that. Visualizing this will help.
All right, here would be one second, because.
Yeah, let's visualize.
Where's it? All right, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna move on so we keep this moving because it bumped me out. Oh, here we are, never mind. See if I can share my screen, hold on. Ah, good. Here we go. Let me turn up the volume. If I can.
Let's party.
So orient me, where's, oh, there it is.
There's the gate.
There's the gate. We're out in the sticks here, people.
The gate shows that does not work. Is the remote? Lighting up. It does not open. Coming over here, does it work? Over there. And we need to keep that. It says, it's not also showing looks like it's vacant. Welcome. Today is July 5th, 2005.
Hey, that was just July 5th. Goodness.
There's a second video. I don't know.
She has, let me turn this. See if that works. Okay, just turning the volume down. There's a second video. It's really the same thing, but it's got the realtor in it when they first went to the property. So it's really redundant.
Okay.
What you just showed. They couldn't get in the property. If the court wants to see it, happy to show it. But you get, I think the court has what it needed in terms of seeing what the layout is.
That was very helpful.
Okay. All right. So continuing on, so that was February 2024. So at that point, you're not paying the mortgage anymore as of March of 2024. You're not contributing to that because there's no rental at that point. You're not allowed to rent it out. You're broken up and you cannot access the property and certainly are afraid to. So, because it is different than a residence that they shared together and lived in because this is a rental property. And so a lockout means she can't rent it out. She can't use it for its intended purpose. Maybe she could sneak on and over a gate, but she can't rent the thing out. She's effectively locked out. All right. So in June, the next text that is relevant.
Before that exchange and your perception that you were being locked out, were you contributing money to the Bank America account on a regular basis? For what?
Or any shortage that the rental income did not cover. So if we had an Airbnb, like a month where the Airbnb didn't cover all the mortgage, then I would transfer money from my other Bank of America account, which was ends at 2,700, and I would put money into the joint account and that to help cover the mortgage and the expenses on the property.
So if at the end of an accounting period, you did the math and noticed there's a $1,000 shortfall for expenses and mortgage and whatnot, how much money would you transfer from 2,700 to that account?
I would transfer it up until March 24, I transferred half of the amount that was still owed to the mortgages.
That's the math you would do. It was, if it's $1,000, I'm sending 500. If it's $10,000, I'm sending 5,000. Okay. And then as of March of 24, you stopped. And was it the case that also renting stopped? So there was no money going into from VRBO or from Airbnb.
That's correct. I stopped renting because Mr. Brown told me that I could no longer rent it. I could no longer get on the property. His dog business was going to pay the mortgage and don't even try.
Okay, I mean, I've read the text, but prior to March 24, what the bank records for the joint account would show is that when there was a shortfall, you were putting in half of whatever that shortfall was.
That was our expectation to both of us contribute half of the amount.
Okay, so really in those months, it could be true to say no one paid the mortgage, not because the mortgage wasn't paid, but because the income was enough to cover the mortgage. In which case, the Bank of America account paid it. It just didn't require any infusions from you or Mr. Brown. Was there ever enough rental income that you all withdrew money from the Bank of America account?
If there was extra money, we would just leave it in the account for the next month, because you never do.
Got it. It just would roll over.
Yeah.
You didn't say, hey, look, we got a $6,000 balance. That's pretty hefty. Let's each take $1,000 out.
It would never be, that never really happened.
You were always having to top it off a little bit, or for the most part.
Not always, but sometimes, I mean, there were time periods where there was more rental income and there was less rental income. We most often had to add money.
Okay,
It was never like a surplus of money. We're like, oh, what do we do with this?
we're rich. Okay, got it.
The mortgage was pretty expensive and there was other things to pay for.
Sure, you got to keep it up.
So
The home equity loan that I heard about, was that taken out before or after March 24?
was it taken out of the Bank of America?
No, meaning there's this HELOC. Was it originated? Did it come into existence before or after March of 24?
Oh, excuse me, was originated at the time that the first mortgage was originated.
Okay, so it had the same birth date.
Yes.
Always the two of those burden the land.
Yes.
Okay,
And Your Honor, if I could approach, I have the deposits made by, of note to the court is that Ms. Saris she was the property manager. She did everything to manage that property, including paying all the bills, including paying the mortgage every month. So she would take that money out of the joint account. So she has personal knowledge of all of that. And we have a summary of all the deposits made by her to the joint account. And
so you just have the joint account records too? I mean, that would,
I do have the actual source records from the Bank of America.
okay,
I do have all of those records. The summaries that we provide are here, and it gives some more detail because on it that we don't have to get into, but just noting things like, it took a little bit of time to set up. So she had Airbnb and Verbo were going into her account originally, and then it was switched to the joint account. But she did use all of that money. It's on this deposit. All the granular is on these
okay.
summaries. that
Let's
we have.
get those to Mr. Brown and me.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Angie, but
Your Honor.
you can refer to these.
Yes, sir.
These are, is a handmade affidavit. I actually have the Bank of America documents.
Okay.
That you need to see.
Well, and Ms. Roy didn't say anything other than that this is a summary. I agree, it's just a summary. And so if you look at this and believe that the records are different than what's on here, then we should,
Which ones?
okay. So Mr. Brown, if you think that some of the numbers on this summary aren't reflected in the records, you can share those with me. But for now, I'm going to assume that these are accurate summaries of the records. Back to you, Ms. Roy.
Of course, reference, go ahead.
Okay, so just to back up, tell the court what your role was as property manager. But before that, tell the court why you are qualified to be a property manager of this rental property.
Of course. So my profession is real estate. I am a real estate broker. I got my real estate license in 2017. I've been licensed the whole time practicing real estate, working with buyers and sellers, buying properties, managing properties, since that time. So that's about 9 years. When Mr. Brown and I decided to purchase this investment property together, I actually located the property myself, presented it to him, and we decided to move forward and buy the property. The reason that, I know you didn't ask me this, but I just wanted to.
That's
state this
okay.
to the court. The reason that I was not on the mortgage was, because I am self-employed and Ms. Brown had a W-2 employment job. So when we spoke with the banker, he mentioned that my employment records would not, or my financial records would not really help us get the mortgage. And he suggested that Mr. Brown's financial records through his W-2 job could support the entire mortgage. So that's how we decided on who was going to be on the mortgage and not. But in that, since my profession is real estate and I do regularly do property management, residential as well as commercial, I currently am employed by Bull Real Estate, Bull Realty, which is a commercial real estate brokerage in Atlanta. And like I said, I do commercial and residential property management as well as short-term rental management.
Okay, so you have knowledge then what is charged in the industry, what a reasonable charge would be to manage a property like this in the real estate industry.
Yes, so for most properties that are short-term rentals, the property management fee is between 25 and 35%. And that also depends on how difficult property is to rent and how much turnover you expect, and also where the property is located. If you are to rent a long-term rental, property management fees would be around 20%. However, this was never a long-term rental. This was only ever a short-term rental where we were renting by the weekend, by the week, or by the month.
Okay, and I want the court to understand how much work you did, soup to nuts, to manage this property. And if you would tell the court what you did to manage the property, since we are going to seek a property management fee as part of this, versus what Mr. Brown did to manage the property, or were you solely the one managing the property, or was he doing any of it?
So like I mentioned, I located the property after we purchased the property. I handled all of the renovations with Mr. Brown's assistance. I furnished the whole property myself. Including furniture and furnishings, kitchenware, towels, sheets, everything that you need to stay in a short-term rental property.
When you say you did that, let's say, for example, there's a bed in the bedroom. Does that mean that you bought the bed? Or does that mean that you told Mr. Brown, there's this bed for $1,000. I need $500 from you before I buy the bed?
No, I purchased, aside from one bed inside of the house, I purchased all of there's 3 bedrooms. Let me correct myself. There was 3 bedrooms. Mr. Brown purchased 1 mattress, and he brought 2 twin mattresses from his home, along with 2 twin bed frames. He also bought a TV and a TV stand. And the rest of the items, furniture in the property, I purchased myself, or I sourced from furniture that I already had that I was using at another Airbnb or at my own home.
Where are all the things that you supplied to the 11800 address now?
Those items are in my garage.
So you got everything back,
I got the things that are mine.
right?
Yes.
Right. You shouldn't take Mr. Brown's
I
stuff.
did
So,
not want his things.
so the things that you supplied, whatever they cost, you got back eventually.
Yes.
Okay.
So what else, so that was how you set up the property, and then what did you do to actually then manage it and get it rented?
So I marketed the property through the various platforms, through Airbnb, VRBO. I talked to every guest that ever booked inside of the home, made sure they were qualified, made sure, they weren't going to destroy our property, that they were going to follow the rules as much as possible. So I screened every person that stayed in the house. I booked them. I collected the payment through did all the accounting. I paid all of the utilities. I paid for the pest control. I manage the well water system, like ordering the filters, paying for them.
Did you do the cleaning as well? That's,
Cleaning of the house, I had a vendor that did the cleaning, so I organized the cleaning, paid the cleaning person.
and that's every time somebody rents it.
Every
has to be
single
done.
time. And I also handled any kind of repairs for any damages or just regular maintenance on the house.
And when you say you handled it, I understand you spent your time arranging it. So you had to get the plumber out there, make sure the plumber did X or Y or Z. The plumber hands you a bill for $500. Do you pay it, or do you, I mean, you physically may have paid it, but is it from your personal account, or do you go to that Bank America account?
So if there was any money in the Bank of America joint account, then I would pay it from there. However, if there wasn't, I would pay it myself with my own money.
Okay. And then how were you planning on balancing that out with Mr. Brown, or when the relationship was good, you just didn't worry about it?
I mean, honestly, I just didn't worry about it because we were in a romantic relationship as well.
Okay.
Don't worry about every little thing.
And you were also the one that was paying all the bills out of the joint account.
Yes,
Is that right?
correct.
Okay, and I didn't know this, I don't know if the court knows this, and how Airbnb and Vrbo works in terms of managing that. Can you just explain a little bit that Airbnb and Vrbo don't manage the property, that they're just really marketing tools, and then, you know, what you did versus what Airbnb, let's say, or Vrbo did?
Right, so Airbnb is not a property management tool. It is only a platform to market your property. So in order to market your property, you have to get pictures taken. You have to write up the description as if, you know, you're listing it on, you know, FMLS or something. It's the same process that I use in my real estate business, to list a property, make sure it's appropriately, you know, furnished, pictures, everything. So it's just a marketing platform, does not provide you any property management.
Did Mr. Brown participate in the property management activities that you've described?
The only property management activity that Mr. Brown participated in was cutting the grass. So he cut the grass and did like the.
Looks like a lot, 17 acres. That's no small job.
No, it's
sir.
not a small
Yes,
job,
sir.
but I'm just noting that.
Do you have a tractor mower at least?
Yes.
Okay.
We had a
Not at
tractor.
first, not at first.
So.
That's why he's so
we would
fit.
Cut the grass with the tractor and you would like trim the shrubs and,
Was there other landscaping, or Mr. Brown was the landscaping for the property?
no, he was the landscaping for the property while we were renting it.
Mhm.
Then once, you know, we stopped renting it, he stopped doing any landscaping at all.
Okay, but while you had this joint venture, you were a property manager, it sounds like, and at a minimum, Mr. Brown was a landscaper. You weren't having to pay Phil's landscaping to do these things.
Okay. And believe if we look, and you're asking the court, our accounting shows that the rental income from Airbnb and Vrbo from 2020 through 2025, we know it stopped raining in early 2024, was 122,848.92. And you're asking the court to award you property management fees based off of that amount of rental income, and at the rate of 25% as a property management fee. And that you want 50% of that to be paid to you from Mr. Brown for those services, as those are part of your profession as well. Trying to think, you're asking for a total of $30,712.23, but half of that would be reimbursed by Mr. Brown and the amount of $15,356.11. That number is on the overall accounting that we originally provided to the court, the first document we provided to the court and to Mr. Brown. It's on there in terms of what we are claiming. Did you want to add?
Does that mean it's on this sheet?
Yes.
So do you want to be
Yes.
paid for your time, or do you
It's
want to
on
be paid for the
the-
profit?
Last
don't get both.
page.
I see it.
property management fees owed to
Okay.
petitioner, and then it has those figures on there. And how she came to that arrangement.
Okay.
The total rental figures are on there as well. All right, now back to the text messages. Back to 20.
Quick question before we leave the little spreadsheety thing, where you have a final number and it's a range, and I understand why, total owed to petitioner. That's not total owed by Mr. Brown. It is your claim that of what's in the registry, this is what should go to Ms. Cerise.
Right.
Okay.
After you split it and then you adjust.
Right. Some things are 100%, some are 50%,
Right,
but when you net out all the math across these
Right.
many line items, you get to that range that is not on beyond what's in the registry. Mr. Brown owes something. It's just you stake a claim for that portion of what's in the registry.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
I think with one caveat, because I don't think that range has his down payment included, netted out of that.
Okay. So we'll go down.
Note that. All right, with respect to the text messages and the lockout issue, which we are making a claim for. You also received texts in June of 2024 as well that are relevant to the lockout. Can you read those for us from the?
Agreed, that's
that I
the first
provided?
section.
And just tell the court what page you're on, because they.
Well, the pages aren't numbered either, so I don't know how you're going to tell me.
My apologies. Better.
Yeah, they're kind of out of order.
But I see there's June 11th, 2024. Hey, Greystone Power just called.
That's the one. That's the one. Read that, Angie.
Yeah. they're
Sorry,
all
that's how they print it out.
out of order. I say, hey, Greystone Power, this is a message from me to Winfred. Hey, Greystone Power just called and they are updating the power lines at Hutchinson Ferry. They need the gate code in order to go and check some things on the pole on the property. What's the gate code? Is anyone there or any dogs loose?
And what did he say?
He says they will have to tell me the day they're coming so I can have the gate open. He acknowledges the gate is closed.
And you responded?
That reminds me, I need to change that over to my name. And I believe he's talking about the electric bill. I say the guy is there right now and he asked if he could go on the property so that he could take note of the pole and what is
Attached to it?
these are out of order.
Are they?
Can I read it from my,
Yeah, just read it from your narrative.
and what is attached to it? Can you please provide me with the gate code? Winfred says, I don't use the code box, therefore I don't know. And I say, you set the code, you know it. How do you open the gate? He says, Angie, I'm not going to argue with you. I don't use the box. The fence messed up the box, wasn't working. I have a gate opener. I also need to know when they're on the property because I have a Century Canine on the property and he will hit anything that steps on the property line. That's his training. Once again, I want to make this very clear so there aren't any mistakes. A Century Canine is a canine that's meant to protect estates, usually government officials and high priority individuals. They're in training. They're trained to attack anything that crosses a certain perimeter of the property. The only person that can control them is myself and Grace.
Okay, and then you talk about in this narrative that there's a text in July of 2024. And you tell us how you felt in July of 2024 about accessing the property and what was going on between the two of you at that point.
I will say that, Winfred and I, we have a 4-year-old child together. At the time, she was actually 2. So we were still somewhat communicating only regarding our child.
Who has custody of the child?
We are also in court this month for
Oh,
that.
hence the reference to family court.
Yes,
Okay,
we
what
are.
judge do you have?
Marble.
Margaret, Judge Margaret.
Oh, you're in Cobb County.
Yeah.
Cobb County. Okay, good. So it's not going to end up with me.
Back to you.
That would be kind of funny.
I don't know, that's the word I'd use, but yes, yeah.
Yes,
Boy or a girl?
girl.
Name, Chloe?
Yes.
Okay.
There's an important text on July 11th, 2024. Do you see that? I know that's out of order, but can you find that text and read that to the court if you would? Or you can read it off your narrative, but I want to make sure it's.
Yes, so I believe, this one here.
Starts with going forward.
Yeah, going forward, I will be taking all bills out of the house, out of your name. The only reason you wanted to book the house was in order to do exactly what you're doing. I don't have time to play these games with you, but it's good to know the games you want to play. You just want to do anything in your power to cause problems in my life. But no worries, enjoy yourself because I can tell things are about to change for you and you will wish you act civilized.
And it goes on.
And he
Yeah.
says, gate is closed and locks will be changed. You had no authority any longer. You have no authority any longer to rent the home. I think this is the next page. This property, you will be phased out very soon. I will carry the full mortgage without you. And
And that's July of 2024, he's saying, July
Yes.
11th, 2024, he said that the gate is locked, locks changed, you have no authority any longer to rent the home. And that's when he puts it in writing. Did you have authority to rent the home before July of 2024?
no, because he said I didn't have authority after we broke up in February of 24.
And even if you did, would you have been comfortable renting?
No,
Okay. And why not? Because of
well,
why would you not have been comfortable renting it?
for July,
After March of 2024, why could you not rent out the property between March and July of
was operating
2024?
his dog business there, and I never knew when something would be happening, if there was gonna be a dog running around loose, these century dogs that are attack dogs. As he mentioned, I don't know. I wasn't made aware of what was actually going on with regards to the dogs on the property. So I would not have tried
Right.
to even rent the property. Additionally, the gate was locked and I could not access the property. So
When you
there's-
tried to get cooperation for the power company to come in and you were met with,
Yes,
What?
I could not, he would not even give me the information for the power company to access the property, to work on our property so
okay.
that they could fix the power lines. They were upgrading the power in the area.
And something else happened in July. So that was a July 11th text. And then later that week, what happened? The relationship deteriorated further and you actually ended up in court. What happened there?
Yes, so as you mentioned, further deterioration. There was some personal things going on between him and I where he was making threats, personal threats to me, against me as well as our daughter. I got a TPO, temporary protective order, in Cobb County in July, shortly after the time period when he sent me that text, but that was not related. It was related only to our family situation. And I was,
So you
granted-
felt afraid enough, and I'm gonna let you finish, sorry, but when you get a TPO, I mean, you have to say, like, you were in fear for your life. Is that fair to say?
Yes,
That you got the TPO? So you're in fear for your life. You were granted the ex parte TPO at that point.
yes.
The TPO did not become permanent though, but explain why that was. Why didn't that become a permanent TPO?
It was actually continued, but then we
You were granted the ex parte, to
was
be
granted the
clear.
ex parte, we went to court. There was a continuance of that ex parte for an additional time period. And then this was, I guess he filed for legitimation custody around that time too. So we ended up going to court for that. And then
So
our
mid-September, you go to court.
Kessler and his family attorney, we went to court and his attorney asked, because this is all part of our family matter, if he could not have a TPO because his attorney said that he would be his job would be affected. And he has 2 other children. They're not my children, but I still cared about them. And I did not want him to lose his job and not be able to support any of his children. So I felt, like I was trying to do the best interest of the entire family. And I agreed to do a consent temporary mutual stay away order.
So it was still a stay away. It's just that you all you came to an agreement about,
Yes.
he agreed to stay away. So it didn't go away. It's just that what became a consent between
Yes.
the two of you.
And that order is still in place.
And that's
today.
still in place. Okay, great. I just wanted the court to know the context in which trying to rent out this property and go on it
Yes.
was occurring.
Yes, so then we were, required to not have any communication at all for a period of time. And we are not allowed to be within a certain amount of feet of each other based on the orders that were in place and are in place still.
How does Chloe get between the two of you? Is there a third party you work with?
So we have a lot of other temporary orders through family court that dictate our parenting exchanges and time. And so we mostly exchange through the school now.
Okay.
But there are times that we don't exchange through the school, like on holidays. We exchange currently at a fire station.
And then, so less than a month after you come to this agreement on the stay away order, then what happens? You're back in court.
Yes, because Mr. Brown,
He sued you, right?
yes, decided, he was very upset and he decided to sue me in retaliation for the,
But he wanted rent money. Is that
Yes.
how he characterized it in that lawsuit in Cobb County? He wanted rent money. And what did the judge say in that case?
the judge did not,
He wasn't awarded
he
any.
wasn't awarded anything and the case was dismissed. He was claiming that I owed him $15,000 in rent money for the property that we are discussing today.
Okay, and after that hearing, did you approach him again about selling the property?
I did. I sent him an email in our Family Wizard, which is the app that we communicate between each other.
Now, that is interesting. I don't know, Judge McBurney, if you knew about that. I didn't. I haven't been through this before, but they communicate through a wizard program, apparently through the family.
That's how they're allowed to
Right.
have contact.
Yeah, we no longer
Right.
text or call each other or email each other. We only talk to each other through our Family Wizard app.
Which is great because then the court has access to
Right?
it as
I
well.
can see it all. Right. So, yeah. I
So
didn't
he
know that.
sent me an email about, the property, like, why am I? He was upset after the hearing and I don't recall the exact words that he said in the email, but my reply was that, can we just sell this property? Can we agree to sell it? Because suing me in court is not gonna resolve the issue. Like, we need to sell the property. Can we sell it? He said he wasn't gonna sell it. He would offer to buy me out for $20,000. And as we can see here today, what's in the court registry is much more than $20,000. So I gave him the option.
And with no credit for any of the rental income that you
No
procured.
credit for anything, really. So that was his offer to me, and I said, that's not acceptable. So if you can't agree to sell the property on the market, then we're gonna have to proceed with this action.
With this partition
Discussing
matter.
now. Yes.
Okay. And in terms of the property,
Are you going to play any more videos or can you stop your share?
oh, I can stop it.
Okay.
Yeah. No. Do you want me to log out of the Zoom?
No, just hit stop share or I'm happy I can make it happen.
I was looking on my computer.
I just didn't want to unshare you if you were going to share more, but I took care of it. So you can,
Oh, you did?
I did, because you said you didn't have anything
Thank
more
you
to
so
share.
much.
You bet. The power of the host.
I appreciate it. All right. Okay. we'll go over, we'll get into your expenses in just a minute. Let's see, if there's anything else? Was there anything you wanted to add in terms of how I mean, I can tell you, we have not had a chance to look at Mr. Brown's accounting with this huge number that he's saying that he paid into it, but, he's claiming that he paid over $200,000, $238,000 or so. Do you have any idea where you paid all of the bills? I understand he did not pay the bills. Is that right? You actually were the one paying the mortgage out of the Bank of America account. Is that right?
So until the breakup, the mortgage was coming out of the Bank of America joint account, except for in the very beginning where I paid it out of my Chase bank account. So I paid out my Chase bank account in the beginning. I started the Bank of America account in 2020. There may have been like a couple payments that he paid out of his SunTrust account when there was like no, I think during the time that I actually was on maternity leave, after I had our daughter, I think he might have paid, one payment from his SunTrust account, and there might have been one other time that I can remember where he paid directly from his SunTrust account. But for the most part, the payments were coming out of the Bank of America joint account. And we were putting money in there. Either he was putting money from his SunTrust account, I'm putting money from my other Bank of America account. And that's how we were paying.
One reason, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's just dawned on me. Mr. Brown, your figure of the 248,000, that includes the nearly $100,000 in closing costs?
Yeah, I think I did include it in that. Yes, sir.
Okay. The numbers are making more sense then.
Correct.
Okay,
That
got it.
alone makes more sense.
Correct.
Yeah, I just noticed that was the very first entry, and so if it
Exactly.
is
That's all
a sum of everything,
Yes,
then a big chunk of the 248 is the 92 that everyone has agreed to. So
Okay, perfect.
there's less murkiness there. I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
And I've got to shortcut that. I mean, we have so many years of mortgage payments here. We also have a summary of all of the mortgage and HELOC payment numbers. And we indicate whether that came out of her personal account or the Bank of America joint account, because she does have a couple that came out of just her account in the beginning. And this is from the summary. I know he objects to it, but this is from the summary. And it says that
When you say it's a summary, would that be up through March of 24? Or does it include, Mr. Brown on his own was paying the mortgage after then, as I look at these numbers?
or at some point he did, but he did stop around October of 2025. But you're correct, Your Honor, that this goes through essentially, let's see, payment information for 2023. This one stops at 2023, but it does.
It stops in 24.
And, okay. So, yeah, it has it on there. This one's, I don't know, this is, there's no more information. But what I'm seeing is that, for example, and I'll just submit this to the court. I mean, it says, it includes the HELOC as well as the first mortgage as well. It includes the original principal amount, the payoff amounts, so the court will have that. And it includes where the money came from, whether it was joint or whether it was hers. Doesn't have his information on there though. And it'll say things like it'll have grand totals in there. Like it'll say for 2019, Sarah's paid all 3 of those mortgage payments. Then in 2020, she paid 3 were paid jointly. And then there were, I guess, 6 months on there that I think came out of the rental income. And then in 2021, 12 were paid jointly, 2022, 11 paid jointly. In 2023, 2 paid jointly.
Mr. Brown, in his summary, says that he paid the full property tax for 2021. It's almost $15,000. Is that contested?
Property tax
In the
was
mortgage.
in the mortgage payment. So there's no way he could pay it separately. It was escrowed with the
Each month.
Each
Would have
month.
Sir, that
was
year,
So you'll get a chance,
Okay.
just a sec.
The mortgage and the insurance was escrowed each month into the mortgage payment. So it was.
And was kind of averaged out, so there shouldn't have
Right.
been.
So there's escrow.
Okay, so Mr. Brown, tell me, you've got on your summary, a February 18th, 2021, it says full property tax payment. It's almost $15,000. What is that?
and so, because she wasn't on the mortgage, she doesn't know that. Because I'm the one paying all this money. So that particular year, I decided not to roll it into my mortgage to keep the note down, because the note was kicking my butt.
Got it.
Mainly because I'm the one, and I'm gonna show you that I'm the one throughout the entirety of this loan has paid the most money towards this mortgage.
Okay,
She claims that she stopped paying the mortgage in 2024. When I cross-reference her, we'll get to the truth.
okay. But what you're saying is that you've got evidence that in February of 21,
have-
you made a payment directly to Fulton County, because that's where property taxes go.
You'll see a bank statement of 14 coming out of my account.
Okay.
Probably the mortgage company,
Oh, you did it through the mortgage company.
Whoever I pay it to.
Well, I didn't know you could pay on a one-time basis your property taxes through your mortgage. If you're paying it through the mortgage, then it's this escrow, and so your monthly amount is more. If you tell the mortgage company, don't withhold anymore or escrow for property taxes, that's how I do it. My mortgage payment is just the mortgage. And then I pay a ugly bill at the end of October to the county.
So the first property tax bill came through, we went half on it. That's our job, do a half on it. The second time it came through, she didn't have the money, so I paid it fully. So it wasn't the first time we've done this, it's actually the second time. The first time we went half on it, and the second time I paid it fully. And she was supposed to pay me back, it never happened. So you'll see an entry for that in my bank account, you'll see an entry for that exact amount.
Okay, all right.
Your Honor, here's our summary for all the mortgage and HELOC payments by year and where it came from.
Great.
And it's not to my knowledge that
It goes-
any payment, like tax payments were paid directly to Fulton County. They were all escrowed as far as I am aware.
Okay.
I was never.
And-
Once again, these are hand documents. I mean, where the,
I understand what they are.
And Your Honor, this does goes through 2024, like we talked about. So no, it wouldn't have whatever he paid thereafter.
Got it.
But again, we contend we are not responsible for that. So, that is that document. And then she also has some expenses, as well that are on this accounting sheet for which he would be responsible for 50% of, for those.
Okay.
And, they are on here, and if the court, I can submit to the court an exhibit of all of those.
They are on here meaning
They're on
the
the summary,
spreadsheet.
and then I had the receipts.
Okay,
That
receipts are good. You've heard Mr. Brown say, those are just handwritten, meaning you typed up a summary, but if there are receipts behind it,
So
that would be helpful.
So my question to the court is in terms of providing support, because they all had to be redacted. These are large files of actual bank statements to correspond and prove each one of this.
I personally don't want any bank statements.
Right.
If the two sides can look at it and say, look at that. Just giving one example, here's $350 for a septic inspection
Right.
that Ms. Saris paid for. All right, that goes,
Got receipt for that and in support of that.
okay,
In terms of those bank statements, right, we didn't want to have to necessarily, we don't have to submit all the source documents for the court to then compare to the summaries. But we certainly have those and we can. And in fact, in fact, what I can do, what I would propose to do then is just have my paralegal do maybe a notice of filing and just produce and say what they are. These are the sacrosanct bank statements from Bank of America, from her account, and he can do his own if there is a dispute, if that's okay with the court.
That would be my preference.
I
Okay,
shouldn't be charged for that as well.
Should not be charged.
For her paralegal doing that extra work on the court date we should have been prepared for. You should have had the document. You should have the documents ready for court. You should have everything you need. Like the documents he has the numbers corresponding with the bank statements. Like, be prepared for court. We have to go back and
We
forth.
did.
Okay, don't, you guys don't have a back and forth. He talked to me, you talked to me.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
okay. All right. I'm assuming that, as part of discovery, whatever bank records you're talking about, you provided to whatever lawyer isn't working with Mr. Brown anymore. And if Mr. Brown's lawyer didn't give him those, again, that's a Mr. Brown and the lawyer he broke up with situation and not a Cerise situation. There's nothing, I would hope there's nothing that you would say, hey, Judge, here's the evidence. And it was never provided to either Mr. Brown directly or to his former lawyer.
We haven't, in fact, we will provide the Bank of America, which is their joint account he has equal access to, but I mean, we did put those in a file, redact them and have them all ready. We just want to know how the court wants to receive these. What's
Okay.
the easiest way to do
Got
that?
it. All right.
We'll supply them.
Do you have other questions for Ms. Cerise?
I do want to go through, if you want to go ahead and go through the expenses as well that she is asking for, we can do that.
Okay.
Or if you just want to take what is on here and you can dispute it and I can provide the receipt.
I think I'd prefer the latter because if you've got proof, I would hope that neither side, sort of like you've done with the down payment, if there's documentation that this has happened, why do we have to have a conversation about it?
Correct.
So you are contending that behind each of the numbers on what I'm calling your spreadsheet, there's documentation. And so if you provide that to Mr. Brown, then he's in a position to say, Judge, I did receive documentation, but you know what? I couldn't find anything for Lowe's dishwasher replacement. And so I don't think that 518.26 should be included.
Okay, perfect.
And then you'd be able to say, this is it right here. He could say, that's a Home Depot receipt. And then I can say, you know what? I'm going to exclude that figure.
Okay.
And sir,
Yes, Mr. Brown.
that Lowe's dishwasher, that was paid out through Airbnb because the person that stayed there, they ruined our dishwasher. That's exactly why I said, sir. that make
Stop.
sure-
Don't talk over him.
This is exactly why I said, make sure when we do this case when people are being false, create sanctions. When someone stayed in our Airbnb, they broke our dishwasher.
Okay.
And when you have someone break stuff, the Airbnb gives you money, like your deductible. That deductible was then put into our account and that dishwasher was replaced. It didn't come out her personal account.
Okay. Well, if it came out of the joint account, I wouldn't understand why it would be on this spreadsheet. So maybe there's some other information that Ms. Roy can point you to that addresses that one. I also hope, although it's your time away from other things you ought to be doing, that we are not going to get hung up over a dishwasher or a home warranty bill when those don't move the needle much. We're at the $250,000 amount. And so 400 here and 400 there, net, especially when we divide by two most of these things, you've cost yourself more if you're liable for attorney's fees, just having the conversation than saying, those are rounding errors over there. So,
And less than, the court registry only has $241,000 in it.
Right.
As it is. So, Ms. Sayers, did you want to respond about the dishwasher? Are we good on that? You did give me paperwork about the fact that they don't pay all of it.
I'll just say that the Airbnb denied the claim.
Oh, they
for
denied that.
The dishwasher, so it was an out-of-pocket expense.
All right, we will shore that up.
Okay.
If we don't have a receipt for it, it will come off.
right. Sounds good.
Did you have anything else that I haven't covered that you wanted to make sure that we covered?
Not at the moment.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, Mr. Brown, do you have questions for Ms. Cerise?
Yes, I would love to call, sir. Sir.
So you stay right there at the podium. Thank you.
So, in your statement, you said as of March 24th, on all mortgages prior to that date, you went half on. Is that true?
That's not what I said.
When the judge asked you
Uh-oh.
up to March 24th, and your lawyer asked you up to March 24th, prior to that, were you paying half on the mortgage before that? And you said
And
yes.
If the Airbnb fees covered the whole mortgage, then the Airbnb fees would pay, essentially cover the mortgage. When there was a shortfall from Airbnb, then we both contributed half of the mortgage payment to the Bank of America account. And the mortgage was taken out of the Bank of America account on most cases, except maybe there was a handful of times where you may have directly paid the mortgage or I may have directly paid the mortgage.
Why would that happen? Because there was nothing in the joint account?
Like one example that I mentioned was when I was on maternity leave, no, I was on like unpaid maternity leave. He covered one of the mortgage payments from his account. I can't recall if we had any rental during that time, but I do recall that he did pay the mortgage at that time. In the very beginning, as Ms. Roy mentioned, I paid the first few mortgage payments out of my Chase Bank account, which is my business bank account. That was before we started Airbnb. So in most cases, it would be if there was some extenuating personal circumstance. At one point, he didn't have a job either, and I paid the mortgage. So those types of extenuating circumstances, we paid up for when we were in a relationship together. And then other times it was because the Airbnb did not cover the mortgage.
Got it.
So you're saying that the first three Chase payments from your Chase account, you paid that mortgage in full?
That's what's in my bank records.
So I'm asking you, you're saying those first three Chase account, the first three, you have it, the first three on top of that list you have from the Chase account, you paid that mortgage fully?
I have the mortgage payments in full coming out of the Chase Bank account.
I'm asking you a question. Those first three payments, was that solely your money that paid those first three mortgages that you're claiming on that sheet?
Did Mr. Brown ever reimburse you for half of what you paid out of your Chase account?
Not to my knowledge.
But it could be and you don't remember, or clearly he's
I mean, if
stirring
I had
to
some
pick a
sort of-
fight over these first few
if I had some
payments.
Sort of documentation, I would gladly look at it and say, okay, well, I didn't remember that, but in terms of my bank account records, I show that I paid.
First three payments came out of your Chase account.
Out of my account.
Okay.
This all goes back to honesty, Your Honor. That's why I'm asking these questions. So you stated, the judge asked earlier, were there any time out of the joint account where money was transferred personally to that person? Either myself or you, was there any time, and during that account time, was any money transferred to a savings, a Zelle, or anything personal?
Objection. If you know what time period he's referring to, or.
So we're generally not going to object. I guess this is the first time we have a witness on the stand as opposed to the people who were just talking.
Right.
But what he said was anytime. And that's what I understood his question to be, hey, Ms. Cerise, can you think of any time, actually it was the reverse, because I think she said it didn't happen, that neither party withdrew money from the Bank of America account. You know what, I need to pay for dinner. Bills were paid from the Bank of America account, but it wasn't that it's holiday season, I need some spending money, I'm gonna take $500 out of the joint account. And my recollection was, I'm not pinning you to this, you need to tell me what you remember. But my recollection is that you said, no, that's not how it worked. It often was empty and we had to put money into it, but there was not a point when you, at least, you didn't say what Mr. Brown did, when you said, I'm going to slide $1,000 out of that to my Chase account or to my 2,700 account.
Well, I think we were talking about if there was ever any excess amount in the account, and would we use that money for personal things? And I said, no,
Okay.
but I think what he's trying to get at is, did money ever go back and forth between accounts? And I will say that yes, at one point, he asked me to change the Airbnb I changed the Airbnb. He asked me, it was in my personal, at one point Airbnb had you start recording taxes. So in the beginning, you didn't have to report any taxes, but then later on, you had to report taxes. So it mattered what entity those were being assigned to. So for a short period of time, his canine business, EIN, was in the Airbnb account to write the taxes. And he asked me to take it off. At that point I did. I changed it into my LLC EIN, so it's being reported to my taxes. So because it was my account and I had other properties under that account, Airbnb only allows you to put one bank account under your profile. So there was times, because of our personal situation, that sometimes the money would go first to my 2,700 account, and then I'll transfer it into the joint account. And the bank records, the summary that we showed you will show you from the deposits what was transferred in from my personal account to the joint account, and then all the money that was earned through Airbnb or VRBO.
So what you were putting in was Airbnb earnings that didn't go straight in because of this tax situation. They went into your 2,700 account.
At some points in time, yes.
Okay. I don't know if that answered your question, but then ask your question in a different
I'll
way.
get right to it, but even to follow up on that, anytime that money was transferred from her account from Airbnb's, because she was doing Airbnb offline, she was stealing from Airbnb, meaning someone would come to Airbnb, but hey, I want to rent your home.
So you asking her questions right now? You can argue to me later. Right now, we're asking Ms. Cerise questions.
What I was getting to is that when I went through the joint account, which I never did, it's all about trust and honesty, I started seeing things, sir. And so let's see here. 1/3/22, there was a transfer to checking account 2,700. 10/17/22, there was a transfer. So there were transfers to our savings account. A savings account is 6666. That's the savings, the last 4 digits of a savings account. So a total of $7,139.12 was transferred from our joint account. I knew nothing about. I started going through the ledger. So I have that data for you. That's why I'm asking the question as of, have you transferred money out the account? Because
Okay.
I never have.
So you're sort of testifying, or what you need to be doing is asking questions.
I know, I'm trying to get to the.
If you think
don't
about it,
mind.
Ms. Cerise, what would an example be, if you can think of one, as to why it's in bright red? It looks like maybe you did have some transfers from the joint account to the 2,700 or the 666. What would have been going on there?
Honestly, can't recall what those specific, if I could see maybe the transactions and think about like cross-reference with my text messages, see what was going on with our personal situation, maybe I could follow it.
Of course, the entries in the bank account will just say transfer to account 2,700. It's not going to say to pay for diapers or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would have to have more information to.
But if you're thinking back on what would be a reason to take money out of the joint account and put it in your personal account? What
Oh.
would make that
So
okay?
Later on, after our daughter was born, we were using the joint account to pay expenses for our child. So sometimes he gave me permission to do this. Write checks for him to deposit money into the joint account so we could use it for our daughter's expenses. Then I was paying expenses out of my 2,700 account for our daughter. I don't know if that, what was the date you said?
Your Honor,
23?
the truth of the matter
At
is,
23, she was already in daycare, so it may have been a daycare expense
No.
or an expense for a nanny.
No,
We
sir.
did have a nanny. and
Don't
a
interrupt.
babysitter. And also she started daycare when she was 2, and that would have been in 2023. So we later were using that account to manage personal expenses for our child.
Okay.
So that may have been the reason there was a transfer of money back and forth between my account and the joint.
You don't think so?
sir, just once again, this is about being true. Anything that had to do with our daughter, it will say Zelle transfer to so-and-so services. Zelle transfer to whoever a babysitter was. Cadence is the name of the school. These particular entries, once again, I'll give you the dates, maybe help you out. 11/22/22, $495 to your savings account, okay? 11/21/22, $495 to your savings account, okay? 11/30/23, $495. I guess is a number you like to use. Went to your checking account, but this is a different checking account. This checking account ends in 6647. That's a different one.
How do you know it's a checking account?
Because it says right here on the ledger, it says checking 664, well, it says checking, it says CHK 6647, which is consistent with the checking account 2,700 prior,
I'm gonna object
with confirmations.
for just a second, because do you have
It's all right
another?
here. All right. Here you go.
Let her finish the question before you
Okay.
put papers in her face.
Okay.
Yeah, did you have a copy of that you gave to the court? I don't have any copies of.
Yeah, that bright red thing. Do you have one for Ms. Roy and for me?
I do. It's getting real. I know. It's getting
So
real.
that was
I
the
know.
first
There you
part.
go.
My second objection here is, I mean, I understand if the court wants to hear this. I mean, my general objection to this is it was a joint account, so legally speaking, it's joint funds if they're in there. So I'm not sure what to what end this line of questioning is, but strictly speaking, it is a joint account. So that he couldn't go and prosecute her for stealing money out of a joint account or.
Okay, and no one's prosecuting anyone here. It just,
Right.
if, and I'm not saying it does, and now that I'm looking at this, most of the red stuff is not what we're talking about. There's a little bit on one page where if it's the case that over time, Ms. Cerise transferred $7,000 to herself, then that ought to show up in the accounting because that was joint money for these folks. Now, there may be explanations for it, like I was paying this bill. Some of the numbers recur. And so there may be something that was $495 that is the daycare center or who knows what. But if she's the only one who took money out of the joint account and put it in a personal account, why wouldn't that go into the accounting?
Okay, well, here's why. Number one, he's in default. Number two, he has no counterclaims against my client.
No, but what we're doing today is making sure that the math is fair, and he's entitled to present evidence about what the math should be.
Okay.
It's not a counterclaim. He is in default, which is why attorney's fees aren't going to work out well for him. But the reason why I'm hearing from Mr. Brown is that he is entitled to present evidence as to how the accounting should work.
And he is. However, this is a partition matter. It's not a claim for unjust enrichment. It's not a claim that somebody abused my trust in a joint account.
Right.
Strictly speaking, what household expenses, what for the mortgage, if he's now upset because he's now gone through their joint account with a fine tooth
It
comb,
always is.
how dare you pay this, that, and the other? She's not we're taken by surprise because we're like, well, they have a child together, so there probably was some stuff in there that was used to pay for different, it's easy for him to come up here and say, these are all illegitimate. Well, gotcha. We are talking about partition, mortgage, all claims relevant to the home. If you want to get into, these other charges that are not related, then we have a chance to defend ourselves and look at those, and she can go back and do forensics on that and say, okay, these were for our child.
Okay, that's a fair point. It's not a
Otherwise,
gotcha moment.
Otherwise, the objection is irrelevant, and it's a joint account anyway, and we're here on a partition, and he has no claims against her for that. So
Okay.
it's irrelevant.
Keep going, Mr. Brown. Different topic.
All right, so once again, this is all about credibility. All right, we'll keep it moving here. The biggest thing that needs to be addressed is being locked out of the property. And so let's see, is there any documentation where you wanted to get on the property and I denied you to get on the property?
Yes, the text messages that I just read to the court, those are documentation.
Is there any time you text me and say, hey, I need to get on the property, can you let me in?
I asked you to get the information to get on the property on June 11th.
Is that for Greystone or is that for you?
That was for Greystone, but you wouldn't give me the information to access the property. I was not able to access the property. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had to ask you.
Has there any been a time where we had Airbnb guest and the gate broke and I had to drive out there to fix the gate? Or just leave it open so they can get in and get out?
Has there ever been a time that the gate broke?
Yes.
Is that the question, or what is the question?
Has there ever been a time that the gate broke?
Yes, there has been a time that the gate broke in the period of time that we owned the property.
Did you or I pay to get that gate fixed?
I don't know who paid. All I know is that at one point in time, we did have a problem with the gate, and you opened the gate and you left the gate open. I don't know if you paid anybody to do anything. All I know is that you went down there and opened the gate.
At a time, was there any reason you couldn't unlock or get into the home, meaning locks being changed?
I wouldn't know because I was locked out in front of the property. So I wouldn't know if I could get into the home, which is 8 acres back.
So you're saying that,
He told me that the property was, the locks were changed and the gate was locked. So why, if you told me that, why would I think anything different?
Were you ever, when you eventually made it onto the property, we know July something in 25, you were able to get back on. Were you able to get in the house? Or were the locks different, or how did that work?
So the locks, the key that I had still worked. So even though he said he changed the locks, I don't know if he did that and changed them back when we,
The key worked.
The key worked.
Okay.
isn't there an area next to the wooden fence that you can literally walk around to get on the property?
No.
Your Honor, in that video, the video that they showed, if you go back and look at that video, you'll see when she spanned around to the fence. There's a little gate right there that you can literally walk through. So like.
How does that keep the dog in?
So that's my thing. When I had my sentry dog wasn't running across the front of the property. The sentry dog was put in a place right in behind the property that's secure and taken care of. My sentry dog, because that property isn't fully fenced in because it's 17 acres. And so that's my point of them saying, oh, they can't get on the property. The dogs are in a special area, but anyone's on that property, period, I need to know. Because once again, my dog business is ran at the back of the property.
I got it.
Away from everybody. But if anyone's on that property, I need to know because I'm liable for anything that happens with my dogs. So you're saying there's not one time you text me saying has there any been time you text me, call me, or reach out to me at any point saying, hey, I can't get into the home? Or hey, or no, I'm going to phrase this. is there any time that you reached out to me and I denied you access, you, to the property?
Yes, you sent me these text messages, which we've already submitted. that
What did the
say
text
that
say?
I'm not allowed to, that you blocked the gate. You can't get into the property. I'm closing the gate. Multiple messages stating that I've closed the gate, you've locked it, you cannot get on the property, you cannot rent the property.
So that was said, but did it actually happen? Did you go to the property and was not able to get through the property?
Yes.
Yes,
I
it was
did
said.
visit
So-
the property occasionally to check the mail and to just check from the outside. Okay, does everything look okay? Like, did a tree fall on the house? Like, is there anything in the mail that I need to be aware of? So yes, I did periodically drive down there and check the mailbox and just look at the property. I took pictures just to document that I was there, and I was not able to get on the property.
Is there any time that you reached out to me in any form or fashion and say, hey, I need to get on the property, and I told you no?
Winfred, we've already covered this.
It's a simple yes or no answer. Is there any time?
So she's answered. She's explained that her interpretation of the text, contents of which I have, so I can read them for myself, which I have. I'll process that and decide whether that constituted you saying you're not welcome and I've locked her out, or she didn't really ask. And at that point, you weren't able to help get the utility people on campus. So I will process that.
Utility people, that was simple. They got on the property. See that they're not shown in.
So you're asking Ms. Cerise questions right now.
Did the utility people that day get on the property?
No.
Text right here, sir. Okay, is this your text right here, man? I'm gonna use that for you as well, sir.
Okay.
Yep, that's him.
I have a council as well. Sir,
Appreciate it.
go to the section where he says he's able to get over the fence.
Do we have a date for these? I guess you need to, there's a date on one of the pages. It's,
It's actually, it's the exact same message stuff they sent you. They didn't give you the entire picture. They gave you a little bit of it.
okay, so June 2024 is the date I see on one of the pages.
Correct.
All right, is there a particular page you want Ms. Cerise to look at?
So when I just asked her, was Greystone able to get on the property? She said no. There's a text that simply says the guy was able to get over the fence.
No, he says, I said,
Is Ms. Cerise now is the ones on the left? You can, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out which one you are. All right, I'm good.
I say, I said the guy is there right now, and he asked if he could go on the property so that he could take note of the pole and what is attached to it.
What I respond?
You said, and I said, can I get the gate code, please? And you said, I don't use the code box, therefore I don't know. And I said, he is there already. I told the guy he can go over the fence, but I didn't say that he went over the fence.
No, what you say is the guy said he already left, but will come back tomorrow. Can you confirm dog will be in kennel? Mr. Brown, have them call me. You, to what number? And then you guys are back and forth about, I'm going to put the bill in my name. So the way I read this text exchange, Ms. Cerise was ready to tell him he can go over the fence, but wanted to be sure that he wouldn't have an unfortunate encounter with the dogs. And by the time it was clear that the dog was in the kennel. The power guy said, I left. I'm not waiting. It's my job to wait around and figure this out. I'll come back tomorrow. And then you guys took it from there. So I don't read this as anyone got in that day. But the guy was willing to climb the fence, which is different from people were given access through a gate.
And once again, it goes back to the gate is not working properly. Someone has to go out there manually, and it's always me to get somebody in, or my neighbor Grace if she's available. So once again, the gate is, for a long time now, and she knows that, the gate is not working properly. It doesn't work properly. When I go to the farm, I have to unplug the pin and open the
She
gate.
actually needs to testify.
When I
So I'm gonna let him finish. We're clearing up this gate situation.
The reason I closed the gate is because it's on 17 acres. I don't want a squatter. Simple as that. If she wants on the property, she can get on the property. It's been like that since day one.
How does she get on the property?
Let me know.
And what do you do?
Let her in.
How?
I have Grace. I tell her how to pull a pin out. It's really simple. You pull a pin out the arm and her arm rolls right. I'll show her how to do it. We've done it before because we had to get our cleaner to do it one time. Our cleaning person, we had renters. The cleaner couldn't get in. And matter of fact, the person that showed us was, she lives out there, a cleaner. She's a little country, a little bunky. And she pulled a pin. She showed us how to do it. So that's how we would learn how to even do that, learning from our cleaning lady. And so she knows how to do it. I know how to do it. But okay. So
Nope, we're gonna keep going with his questions.
So in regards to the furniture, you're saying that you purchased the furniture solely by yourself and I did not put anything on the furniture?
It's not what she said. She said that you provided one mattress and some twin mattresses and some twin bed frames.
So all the things you took off the property, what was that date?
The date,
That you pulled off, when you went on the property that you didn't have access to? When you went on the property to pull all the furniture out of the property, what was that date?
The date that I went to take my personal belongings from the property was the day after you sued me in court for the $15,000.
What was that date?
Yeah, just ballpark, because
The date is actually on that accounting, the first accounting spreadsheet.
this,
Yes, it's on, should be on the last. Is it on the last?
It's
page?
October of 2024. I don't know the
I think it
exact date.
said October 7th possibly.
okay, but the month and year would be October 24 is when
After he told her she couldn't rent it out anymore.
I'm suing you, then the next day you were, okay. How'd you do that if you were locked out?
when I went to the property, the gate was open that day. And I was able to access the property and take my personal belongings.
Did you arrange either through counsel or directly with Mr. Brown for the gate to be open that day? Or you just rolled the dice hoping that it would be open?
I just hoped because, I mean, I didn't know it was going to be open or not. It just happened to be.
Okay. But you didn't have to ask Mr. Brown anything. You went in, your key still worked in the house, and you were able to get all of your personal belongings.
At that point, I just want to remind everyone that Mr. Brown and I were not allowed to have any communication.
I get it. I'm not faulting you for not reaching out to him, but I want to make sure I'm understanding the facts, which is that on some day in October of 24, you're able to show up probably with a truck, something, roll all the way up to the house, get into the house, get your stuff onto the truck and roll out. And Mr. Brown wasn't in your way. He shouldn't be because of the whatever agreement you guys had, but you didn't need to interact with him in any way in order to do all those things. Is that a fair summary of how it went down?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And so March 24th, 2024, that's the date you guys claim you have access to the house, correct?
Yes, that is when you said that.
All right, thank you for answering that.
She didn't finish answering. Let her finish answering.
That is when you said that you said, I will go there tonight, lock the gate. I'll put a lock on the pin to where you can't manually open it. You'll learn the hard way what you can do and not do. I will go up there, close the gate today. And you said a cuss word and then you don't care. And then you said it multiple more times after that. So it was my understanding that I could not access the property anymore. After we went to court that day, you sued me, you lost. And my assumption is that before you went to the court, you had someone open the gate so that when we presented this same argument that we have today about the lockout, which was also what caused you to lose that day in court regarding the rental income, you went and you opened the property.
I have the transcripts from that court date, so that's not truthful, and I'll just make sure the judge gets it. But anyways, that court date had nothing to do with the lockout, sir, since you're bringing it up. That court date.
But what I want you to do is ask Ms. Cerise your next question.
So Ms. Cerise, you feel that you're entitled to, the Airbnb and the VRO fees, right? That's what you're entitled to that?
The fees?
With the money you made off Airbnb and VRO, you feel you're entitled to that, correct?
I'm entitled to a property management fee for managing the property and getting credit for half of the rental income that was generated in our accounting.
So would you feel that, I should also, be credited
We're
for
getting there.
agriculture, carpentry, maintaining the property? Did you feel that I should also be compensated for that?
Well, I do. Her opinion doesn't matter so much, but in the same way that work that Ms. Cerise did to, when it was a jointly operated rental property, made it rentable, that's why I was talking about someone mowed 17 acres. And so, that is of value.
That's 7 to 8 hours.
Okay, well, when it's your turn to talk about things, you can tell me about 7 to 8 hours. I got to imagine it had a lot of bugs. But you don't need to ask her. That's a decision for me to make, and I'll spare you the energy. I think things that you can document that you did to help maintain the rental property when it was a jointly rentable property, I need to take into consideration.
So who did all the repairs on the home when renters put holes in the wall? Anything happened to the home? Who did those repairs?
We had a number of different repairs, so I can't really speak to, but a general question.
Did Mr. Brown ever do any of the repairs?
Mr. Brown may have repaired a hole in the wall that someone made.
Okay, but you also relied on some, I'm gonna call them contractors, but it may be that there were times, there's a plug on the surface, you don't need to go
It
under.
didn't work, so I don't know, my battery's died, so I just plugged it
Huh.
in. Sorry to interrupt.
Then that's fine, we try to prevent people from having to go underneath there.
I tried.
Wonder why, was it turned off?
Okay.
The old switch.
The old switcher. I'm good. We're
Okay,
good.
as long as you're good. But it sounds like there were other service providers who did repair and maintenance work on the property as well. Okay. Back to you.
Who repaired the 200-foot dock on the property? The wooden 200-foot dock?
Were you able to tell me who did it?
I'm asking you, who repaired the 200-foot wooden dock?
I didn't witness it being repaired, so if you want to ask me more specific question.
Who repaired the dock? The entire dock, that's 200 feet on the lake.
Do you know who repaired the dock?
I know that Winford participated in repairing the dock.
That's Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Okay.
I repaired the entire dock.
When it's your turn to testify or tell me about it, then you can tell me all about it.
Oh,
We know.
All right, and I knew this was gonna come, you know, that they want to smear my name. And so let's get to the TPO. First, how many lawyers are you on for a family law right now?
How is that relevant?
That's my, yeah, what does it matter if she's had 100 lawyers? I don't want to get into the TPO provided some context about how fractured your relationship became, but I'm not blaming that on one side or the other.
That's the problem.
Well, but I don't know what that has to do with what we're doing here.
Well, it's going to the point that they brought it up. That's my point. They're trying to smear my name. Like I was a villain and she was scared to come to the property. So that's why it's important,
Okay.
because the TPO was fake.
Were you scared to go to the property?
Tomorrow, but yes.
She's testifying she was scared to go to the property, and you don't have to believe her. I don't know. I have to hear more testimony, but Ms. Cerise is saying she was scared to go to the property. TPO, no TPO, mutual stay away order. Ms. Cerise was scared to go to the property. That is her sworn testimony. And that's what we've got.
And she said she was scared to go to the property, but she went to the property and grabbed furniture without.
Doesn't mean she wasn't scared when she went.
Could have been. Well, long story short is that I currently have, so what is the visitation schedule with our daughter right now?
Ask a question.
Just answer his question.
Our visitation, temporary visitation with our daughter is that I have her on every Thursday,
Is it 50/50 or what?
Thursday. And you have her on Monday and Tuesday, and we alternate weekends. And that's a temporary schedule.
Is it 50/50?
It's a temporary 2-2-5 schedule. It is not a 50/50.
That is
It's a
50/50.
temporary schedule.
That's 50/50.
Okay, let's not argue about that. Now we know what the schedule is. You guys are going to,
We're guarding that item in place. That's
Yes,
investigated
there is
this
a
on.
guardian ad litem in our family law case.
And does the guardian ad litem think that I've been a danger to you? Ever?
I don't know. I haven't asked her that.
we're straying pretty far from how do we divide up the
Well, this is the thing.
240,000.
I mean, it was allowed for them to, to come in and just start TP, like, well, the TPO had to do this, right? They brought it in and they're allowed to, to try to trash me, but in reality, you're right, there's a lot that goes into that, that her lawyer don't even know, and so that's what I'm saying is like, it wasn't necessary because
Okay.
I've never threatened her. I've never harmed her. Everything she put in TPO was fake.
Well, and there is no TPO. There's a mutual stay away order.
Correct.
That's what we're operating.
It was brought up trying to bring my name down. That's the
Okay.
point, because it had nothing to do with anything.
Okay. I'm not viewing it as being determinative of anything I need to work through. So you don't need to dwell on it anymore.
Who installed the dishwasher that was broken at Airbnb?
The Lowe's person,
So you have a receipt that's showing installation as well as purchase?
I don't know if that's in our files.
You know what? We'll take off the dishwasher.
Let's not talk about the dishwasher anymore.
One of the
It's
dishwashers
Let's
that
move
I did all the maintenance on the
I-
property. That's just HVAC or plumbing. I did everything.
okay.
Period.
So who's Mr. Appliance? There's an entry here for Mr. Appliance Washer Repair. Is that your nickname? Or would that be a vendor who,
What was the amount of it?
$420.60, Mr. Appliance.
That was the oven trying to be fixed.
Okay, so you didn't do that.
Correct.
Okay.
But I bought pieces to the oven and tried to fix it myself before we called Mr. Appliance, so I couldn't do it.
Okay, I'm glad you didn't hurt yourself.
I love it.
All right, my case rests. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay.
Ron, if I could give some legal authority about the lockout issue.
Yes. Let me send one email and then we can do that. Something pop up here that I need to make sure goes out. Okay.
Your Honor, with respect to a lockout,
Oh, do you have any redirect or can Ms. Cerise step down and come on back?
I want to do a little bit,
Okay.
much that, much.
Okay.
If I can, if I may.
Can you go to the podium also, since I kept Mr. Brown at the podium?
I'm
Thanks.
thinking like this is, you know, what? I think that's okay. That's okay. I don't need a redirect.
Okay. Ms.
think I'd
Cerise,
be
thank
more-
you for your testimony. If you brought something up there, you should take it back with you. But if there were things that the lawyer, that if Ms. Roy or Mr. Brown handed it to you, you should leave it there. Okay?
Is she too lazy to walk up to the podium?
Thank you.
Oh my God.
If I can shore up the perspective of lockout.
Sure.
The case that we rely on, it's the ouster concept in partition matters, the seminal case is Mills versus Williams.
Can you spell that first word?
Sure, Mills, Mills.
All right. Citation.
208 Georgia, 425, 1951. But that didn't involve a rental property, but it involved two people living together. And that's usually where you see the case law addressed. This is different though. We're not talking about, our allegation isn't that she could never sneak on or that she could never like go retrieve something, and take her chances by not being mauled by a dog, that she's not being told whether or not the dog is going to be on there or not. In those text messages that were presented, it's clear that he would not give her the gate code and he was not going to tell her the schedule for the dogs. So she couldn't rent it out. Is the point.
Object.
She couldn't.
Don't object. You get to respond. When it's your turn, you're going to give me your thoughts.
The lockout really is because she couldn't rent it out any longer. She could not use her the reason for the property was to rent it out. I mean, it was a rental property. They weren't living there. So to say, well, you can sneak on and off, well, that doesn't, that really is committing waste because the whole point for the property is to rent it. He said no more. So in addition to her being afraid, she
So it's sort of locked out for business purposes. It's not, the term lockout makes you think there's this gate and barbed wire. And it may well be Mr. Brown's right. They're like, hey, you know what? You could sort of squeeze your way through between the gate and the wood. And you're saying that's not the point. Of course you could get in. The fence was not 30 feet high. One could scale the fence.
penitentiary.
Well, that's what I just wrote down. Right.
We're not arguing that it was. We're not arguing she couldn't. What we're saying is he
Locked out of the business purpose for the property.
Exactly.
We bought this to rent it out and you are making it so that I can't do that.
In his own words, no more renting out my property. I got my dogs down there. Take your chances. Those are his words. And there's a statute in the partition law that directly addresses this. It's OCGA 44-6-121. And that statute addresses what the co-tenant's duties are to your fellow co-tenant. One of those is, the accounting for fair rental, the accounting for any profits that come off the property, number one. Number two, not committing any waste. So if you have a rental property and you're saying you can't rent it, that falls squarely under the definition of waste. And that's what we're talking about as part of that lockout. That he has wasted all of that money and therefore not liable to him for any of those mortgage payments. In terms of, he's now claiming that he wants, to be compensated for cutting the grass. See that? Or now docks, wooden repairs, that kind of thing. Well, then he's certainly got to come up with receipts for that.
Well, you say receipts, but one of the line items you seek to recover for Ms. Cerise is, hey, I was the property manager
Okay.
and that's 25%. And so if Mr. Brown contributed labor for which he didn't bill,
Right.
and I don't know about the dock, I'll have to hear about it, but having mowed a large area, I have a colleague who lives down there who said, hey, you can try out my tractor, and that's brutal. I would expect to be paid, I volunteered for that one, but I expect to be paid handsomely if I was doing that.
You know the pain of it. But here's the distinction, and it's an important legal distinction because this comes up all the time in these partition cases where people want sweat equity and you start getting into that. And I planted these bushes. Well, I did this. And The distinction is this, my client, that is her profession. She is licensed to do that and to perform that service. So it's the difference. What I have found in my experience is that with respect to like contractors work, if you're just a guy on a Saturday, kind of putting some duct tape and kind of fixing something, but it's not you're not a licensed contractor, right? That courts have been more open to letting you recoup your hard expenses for that, rather than saying, okay, well, that is your profession. So, we can rely on the quality of that repair and and then they provide evidence that this is what that service was worth. And I can speak to that because I'm in the industry and that is my profession. He isn't a contractor. So if he's making wooden dock repairs and things like that, that's great. Appreciate that. If you've got a Home Depot receipt for some wood, we're willing to give you 50% of that.
I have that.
But you understand our argument. If that's not his profession, like it is my client's profession, that's the difference.
I hear it. I don't know how persuasive that is. I think I have discretion here. The fact that Mr. Brown as a kid may have mowed lawns and has pulled himself up to being a medical professional now, I don't think should mean he couldn't be recompensed for using childhood skills to improve the rental property by spending 8 hours mowing it.
Well,
As opposed to only if Mr. Brown said, I renounce my medical career and I'm going back to landscaping, could he collect for it? But I don't disagree that that's an approach to it. I think I've got some discretion in this space.
yes, in the court, and that's part of the reason these cases are somewhat frustrating to litigants, because it's
Right.
it's the discretion, right? It's not a specific formula.
Right. There's not a statute that said if you're a medical professional, you can't collect for landscaping.
But I will say this, then there could be a difference, like Your Honor, a lot of folks know, especially the males who got the were charged with yard work at the house. They know what it takes and, you have an idea, obviously, of the effort that goes into that. That's one thing. But when you start repairing things, installing things, doing electrical, doing plumbing, installing dishwashers, when you're, a deck that is on a pond that needs to be safe, that's a different
I agree.
issue. So anyway, I just want to point that out, and then, but that's it with respect to the lockout. And then I to cross him a bit if.
And to respond to
we get
her,
that.
You don't need a real estate license to run an Airbnb. There's nothing that has to do with the Airbnb and VRBO that requires a real estate license. Bobby and Joe that's down the street can run an Airbnb. So her license, being a real estate license, has nothing to do with the Airbnb. Nothing.
I don't think it has nothing to do with it. I think Bobby or Joe could also mow a lawn. Either no one collects or you're entitled to something because you provided something, and Ms. Therese is entitled to something because she provided services.
Correct, because I look at it this way. We had a estimate to cut the grass at the property, because once I wasn't doing it no more. I'm not putting my hours anymore. We got an estimate for one time, and one was 8,000 and one was 6,000. So there you go. And so just like her being a property manager, she saved us money, and that money goes directly to our mortgage, which it helps us out.
Right.
Just like me running agriculture, I save us money. So for me, that washes out, to be honest with you.
Well, I don't know about washing out, but I do think that I ought to treat them similarly, which was my gentle pushback to Ms. Roy. I understood her point, but I think in this situation, I ought to be looking at each of the ways in which you both contributed to having the rental property functional, marketable, visible, so people know it's out there. And so I think there's a role that both of you play.
And something else too, I also play, because Miss Cerise only went to the property maybe 4 times a year. And I'm being very generous with that.
Okay.
Who was the person that replenished the toilet paper, the paper towels, that replenished everything? And I had the receipts. I had the receipts for all of that, showing that anything that went through the Airbnb that had to be replaced, paper towels, soap, that was all me.
Okay, so I look forward to seeing that, or I bet Ms. Roy looks forward to seeing that, but those are the types of contributions that we need to include in the math that has to happen. I don't know that a few years purchases of toilet paper are going to move the needle a whole lot, but I don't mean to exclude it either.
It's just a point of, when it comes to managing that property, we both did just as much. And the thing about it is for me, on that property, from Friday to Sunday, I'm happy as agriculture. Meaning when we had renters, I slept in the car, I slept in the tent on the property because I had to be out there to do things. So my time is from Friday to Sunday. And when we didn't have renters, I lived on the property because I had to be there to do all that yard work all the time. And so that time, I mean, that's sweat equity, like that's real sweat equity,
It's true sweat equity. So again, what you can document, I'm happy to consider, and we'll work through that. Ms. Roy, did you have more? Because you sort of haven't rested yet. Yeah, and so, yeah.
I mean, he's bringing out more things, that the board should be aware of too. He was the only one getting favorable tax treatment because of this property, because he claimed it as, he claimed the entire depreciation for the property on his taxes. And my client claimed none of it because he said he was running his business out of it.
Objection, that's not
So-
true.
So
She paid the
don't object. Let her finish, and then you'll get a chance.
So, I mean, if he's saying he should claim some of it, all I know is I have seen, I mean, his tax return, it's true, he'll admit it, sorry, it's not to you. He claimed on his tax returns the depreciation, and normally that's front loaded with all 27 years.
Sure.
The first year that you get a rental property, which is why people do it. It's so incredibly wonderful for tax treatment purposes. So he claimed all of the depreciation there in that first year. And my point is this. I mean, if we're putting everything in the pot, like he's saying, oh, I was down there more than she was, he was running the tack dogs. That was part of the reason they couldn't rent it out as much as they could have otherwise too. But as he's using it for his business, and he has these, and I say tack dogs down there, not because I love dogs too, and I'm sure they're properly trained, but you
They're
know,
different from our dogs.
it's very different than my
Right.
little Bichon. Yeah, and you can't just willy-nilly roll up on the property and sneak in whenever you want to. He's got possession, use, exclusive benefit of it, and particularly with the tax treatment as well, more so than she did.
Well, if you want to add to the mix your understanding of the value of the depreciation declaration on taxes, you're welcome to do that. I appreciate that you, I can't say you stayed at the highest of levels because there was the dishwasher. But in general, you're look, these are the basic building blocks. But what you've just described is not inconsequential. If there was a meaningful benefit that could have been split, I don't know how that works. I'm not a tax court judge. But if in fact, I'm making the number up, but if the depreciation was 100 and Ms. Cerise could have had 50 of it because she's a co-owner, and Mr. Brown could have 50 of it, but he took all 100, then that's a benefit that he got that Ms. Cerise didn't, that if we're doing an accounting, we ought to figure out how do we smooth that out. If you want to do that, you are flagging it. I can't put it in the equation if I don't have numbers, and then if those numbers are challenged, then documentation behind the numbers.
Right, and my point was simply, I mean, the reason we hadn't brought it up before is frankly, it isn't part of the 30,000 of accounting for this thing, but if we're gonna have to start getting down into every nut, bolt, and screw.
Yeah.
Then here we are, and now I'm having to look at every roll of toilet paper that was first, I mean, I'd rather not, as I've said from the beginning, I think we all would rather not. But if we're there, then we're gonna ask for, half that depreciation back then too. I mean, the value of that. So anyway.
Your Honor, she
Just wait, you
anyway,
patience.
Right, that's all I had to say about that, but I hope that won't be necessary.
Okay,
I mean, I really
Got it. Okay. Mr. Brown.
So once again, it's about telling the truth. I guess they're in bed together. She claimed the property at 2023. I know for a fact because we had the same accountant. And the accountant told me that she claimed the house in 2023.
When you say claim the house, what do you mean?
Taxes. She claimed taxes on the property in 2023. We had the same accountant, and we no longer had the same accountant because of conflict of interest because of that. And so, secondly, they keep.
Did you ever claim depreciation?
Correct.
What year?
Every year.
Every year.
Every year. And the reason why and she was fine with it because I paid most of the dollars on that property. So that's
Fine.
so that's why it was no issue for her, no issue for me, because when the bills came up short, as the documents show, I paid the mortgage. When she wasn't working, I paid the mortgage. When she didn't have money, I picked up the mortgage. So I picked up the entire slack of the property. So it wasn't an issue for us.
So why shouldn't then the depreciation you were able to take be included in the mix as well? You said the reason why you feel, and Ms. Cerise, according to you, didn't have an issue with it, you felt comfortable being the one who took it, was because you were contributing more financially. And so if you want credit for your financial contributions, shouldn't you also have the decrement for the tax benefit that you got?
Well,
Yes.
I would say no, because
No,
at
you
this time-
should only get the good, but not the
I'll
bad.
tell you why.
Yeah.
It may be right or wrong, but she's living in my home at that time, living with me, not paying a single bill, not paying a dime towards the house. And so in my eyes,
The house, not the 11,800
Oh, the house we're living in,
in Cobb County.
that we reside in, yes, where she's living, my daughter's living, she's not paying any bills. And so, yes, I get what you're saying, but, there's a lot that goes into this to where,
It's clearly much more than just the house. I hear you.
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
that's a lot. That's what I'm saying. So yes, theoretically, you can be correct on that. But on the back end, the reason why it's an issue for her is because she's living free of board.
Okay.
I
I don't know that's how people describe it when they're living together, but this the term you're using, and you're helping me
No
understand.
bills towards the house, paying no.
I heard you.
nothing.
I'm
Yep,
the
I heard
judge.
you
I'm
say
like,
that.
I'm not dealing with this crap. Half.
That is
Half
why
the
this
rookie.
case is more complicated than if you had just been business partners. All right, was there anything more from plaintiff's side, Ms. Roy?
Let's see. Guess what I want to know, we have receipts for all of our expenses. Does he have receipts for any expenses for which he is seeking adjustment?
Yes, I do.
So the way I'm going to ask you all to handle that is you put together this helpful spreadsheet and you have receipts. It says on there, we've got a receipt or an email, receipt in exhibits folder, et cetera.
Right.
If you've provided those to Mr. Brown, then I'm going to give Mr. Brown, you don't have to do it today, but I'll give both sides an opportunity, figure out how much time you need to look through it and say, I can't find a receipt for X. But you don't tell me that initially. You'd let Ms. Roy know, hey, it says receipt in exhibits for the $600 home inspection. I can't find it. And Ms. Roy could say, look at page 21, and then you'll see it. And I only want to know if there are line items in plaintiff's spreadsheet for which it is claimed there is support and there's either a disagreement that it really supports it or there ends up not being support for it. Oh, we thought we had a receipt, but that's not for the water heater. That was actually for something else. But if it's documented, then we're not going to spin our wheels because it's documented. You have an opportunity to do the same if you want to, and that may be in part, Mr. Brown, this one where you had checks and a few bank statements attached. That was your focus more on mortgage payments, but there may be other things you have referenced. I got a receipt for the wood for the dock, and I got an estimate for $8,000 to get the place mowed. If there is paperwork that you want to rely on to substantiate expenses for which you are seeking credit, you will need to marshal those and get those to Ms. Roy so that she can look at your equivalent of this spreadsheet and say, look at that. That is $900 for timber that went into the dock. Okay. Does that work for you, Ms. Roy? It sounds like you already have your exhibits together and,
I do,
It
we
doesn't
do
look like
have
it.
them, but I do, I'm gonna tweak, now that we're gonna take the dishwasher off there, I'm gonna, I can tweak it and just send him a file where it's all together.
that would be fantastic.
Along with those, the bank records, since we're going tit for tat on every single,
Well, I wouldn't worry about you help me refocus on partition as opposed to things that might happen in a Cobb County lawsuit.
right.
So I'm less concerned about the $7,000 worth of withdrawals. And I am more focused on what the investments were in the property and then these mortgage payments, things like that.
Okay, all right, cause I've gotta take a look at what he.
I understand.
saying
You do.
Versus in the, in that joint account versus all of that rental income that came in. And see if I have an objection to any of that, because what he's claiming, I mean, if he is in fact. It's interesting to me because the court does have discretion, so some courts only give credit for, like we said, there was only, what, 20,000 in principal that was paid down on his property. So some courts will just look at that. Other courts I've seen, so it makes it more challenging for us to try to prepare for arguments because the court does have discretion and we don't know. And properties are different and how
Right.
much equity people have in them can change the analysis, certainly. In this case, he's asking for, 248 as a beginning, and there's only 241 even in the coffer, so.
Right, although we learned that 92 of the 248 is the down payment, which of course is a 50-50, not 100%.
That's
And so we've moved way off that. And so I think it would be helpful if you went through the remainder, because it also has some spikes in it. There's the 15,000 for property tax payment, and that's like 4 or 5 mortgage payments right there. And we need to get to the bottom of that. Is it something he paid in entirety or what? And he says that there's documentation for it. I'm not doubting him. I haven't found it yet.
I've never heard that before, so,
Right.
I will, and just so Mr. Brown knows, I may be reaching out to you as well as we do this, if we're going to then say, do you have this receipt?
Right. And so that needs to be productive back and forth. If I can't get back to you for 2 weeks, that's not going to work.
Assistant work with them, so I don't have to.
Great. However you guys choose to do it. All right. Mr. Brown, anything more from you, or you feel like you understand how we're moving forward?
I understand. I definitely understand. For me, like I said, the most important part to me is that, this was, you said, but this was a business deal, right? This is a business partnership. And for me, I'm not about getting over anybody. It's about, this business partnership was not. And then they claim they stopped paying mortgage at 24th. Well, she didn't pay her mortgage well before that as well. And the documents are going to show that. And so their claim of them not paying mortgage past the 24th is trying to outline or trying to weaken the point of, you're my business partner and you just left me hanging. And that's all it came down to. You're my business partner in this deal and you left me hanging. And in regards to the part of they couldn't rent the property, the reason why I said I did not want the property rented anymore, and I made it very clear, the reason why I didn't want the property rented anymore because she had Airbnb and VBRO in her name doing things off the docket. I wanted to be able to, at this point, we're not together. And so I don't trust you. And I told her that. I was like, if you're gonna run, you cannot run Airbnb and VBRO and me not have access to it. She wouldn't give me access to it. So what they're not saying in the lighter scheme of why I said we can't rent the house out on blocking the doors, because you have to stop renting until you give me access to the account. That's all it was. Because at this point, she already had done it. Because she reached out to me one time and said, hey, about my dog, I had a dog event. I had a canine event for Atlanta PD and some other surrounding Paulding County, Cobb County had a competition. And then all of a sudden you tell me we have a renter. I'm like, what? Yes, I was upset because I had to cancel that.
Yeah.
And so I was upset. So I'm like, well, look, if I had access to Airbnb and VBRO, we wouldn't have this problem. And so that was my whole thing is if you can't give me, and my thing is, why was it, and I have a ton of text messages, why is it a problem that you, and I even asked her this while we were dating. Cause I started getting skeptical because why all of a sudden that Airbnb and VRBO was on the joint account, but sometimes it wasn't. And so that's the thing. She got to deal with Airbnb because I've already made a complaint that she was doing stuff offline. People would come to Airbnb, hey, I want to rent, but she would pull them off the platform and do it on the backside and not get the fees.
You told me. You told
You
me.
know, and so, you know, with that being said, like, that's why I told her you're not renting anymore until I have access to Airbnb and VBRO. That
He's
she's denied.
sleazy, he's stupid.
Why? Right? Why can I have
Rules or
access to something
arrangement.
that I'm on the home of? And that lawsuit,
Objection, facts,
the
not
lawsuit,
evidence.
Just
I-
the
I'm just
lawsuit
gonna hear
that we
him out.
had, the lawsuit that we had in Cobb County, the reason why I sued her is because she wouldn't give me access to Airbnb. And so the premises of that lawsuit was like, since you won't give me access to Airbnb, we can't rent. These are the amount of days this house has not been up to rent Airbnb because you won't be access to it. That's what I was trying to get. And the judge was like, 'cause she had a lawyer as well. And the judge was like, well, you didn't bring enough evidence to show that you're actually, that rental rate is a rate you deserve. That's why I had enough evidence. But I just want to give you the entire picture very.
I got it. Okay. All right. I have some work I can do on this, and then there's some work that you all need to do on it as well. So I will send some instructions out, maybe with some deadlines, and we'll move forward in that way. Ms. Roy?
If it would help the court, I cross-examine him on these allegations he's making about the Verbo Airbnb. But frankly, I mean, it is in the accounting. It shows those payments directly into, and we did provide the court with receipts for all of that.
When you said you provided the court, where do it, like, is that in some of these folders you gave me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Your Honor. It says rental income is the title of the folder.
Got it. Okay.
And that.
Well, I'm going to be very driven by paperwork I have and not paperwork I don't have. So that's why I've asked you all,
Fair enough.
yeah, to talk it through, because if there are disagreements about things, then we'll go with what the paperwork says. And so there's a disagreement about rental income. I've got some paperwork and I'll see what that has to say. I won't be shy about reaching out with questions. And if I have a question, even though it's a question for one side, the email will go out to everyone because there are often two answers to one question. Okay?
All right. Thank you, Your Honor.
You bet. Mr. Brown, anything else?
That's it, sir. I appreciate it.
All right. Mr. Body, good afternoon. How are you? Oh, for Ms. Rivers. It's never for me. She gonna know, whoa. What case? Oh, all right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great weekend. Do you do Easter? Do you do Easter?
I do.
All right. Have a good Easter. All right.
At this point, Your Honor, so anything else we would just submit to you online and with each other, and then you take it under advisement until you reach a decision?
Right. Unless I conclude I cannot sort this out, you guys have to come back in here. And when I say come back in here, it may be we get on Zoom if it's look, it's this very narrow issue, but I can't figure it out. I don't need to make everyone come into court. You have other things you need to be doing. But if I'm stuck and it's going to be a pretty healthy back and forth, then everyone will need to come back down here.
Okay, well, we will make sure then
Oh,
that the
man.
court
There won't even be another date. He's just gonna
Has
issue a decision.
all the bank account, every last single bank statement that, should you want to refer to it.
I look forward to that sort of.
digital form.
Do you
Yeah.
want the bank statements? I have all the bank statements that I have them all.
So if you want to show Ms. Roy what you're talking about and she says, yep, those are the ones, it would be great. You can leave them with me.
I have the joint Bank of America account, so she's have it.
Okay, from what date to what date? Because that's a real thin stack.
I broke it down.
This
Hold on. I have, here it is. It goes,
doing forensic.
because the joint account wasn't always being used like that, but 623, and that's when it stops and it goes to. Hold on.
Well, for what it's worth, we will submit it in digital form, the complete.
Okay, yeah. Because what I don't want to do, because this just leads to frustration, is, hey, you know what? That was 6 months, but the month that's really interesting isn't one of those 6. So,
I have first day to last day, I have the entire thing.
but you're holding up like 3 pieces of paper. How can that be? That's it? That's,
No, it's not. There's also 3 accounts implicated here. There's her individual account where money came out of deposited into the bank. There's his individual account, and then there's a joint. The court will need the source documents for
Right.
all 3 of those.
Yeah.
We will submit those to the
Okay.
court, and then if you can submit whatever you want. That way, should you want to do some forensic accounting behind these summaries.
got it. I've got it. Okay, good. And whatever you're submitting, when you say submit it to the court, Mr. Brown will have it as well.
Of course.
Excellent.
We thank you for your time, Your Honor.
Hey, it's what I'm supposed to do. And like I said, this was
And Judge, one last. thing.
interesting introduction to my future line of work.
Judge, one last thing that we haven't, like I said, the mortgage part of the main, the one thing we haven't even talked about. There hasn't even been there wasn't any help on the second mortgage. It was all me, other than Airbnb. She never heard her say, I paid half on the second mortgage. She left me hanging on that since day one.
So you can say left you hanging, but if she didn't pay it, then you get credit for that. If Ms. Roy didn't say Ms. Brown paid for something, then I assume that means, Ms. Cerise didn't pay for something. I assume that means Ms. Cerise didn't pay for it.
And
But what I don't have in front of me
do you want
is,
that? I have that as well.
I do, because I don't know what you paid on the second mortgage. I assumed, but I guess these figures that you shared here,
That's only the first mortgage.
it's only the first mortgage.
Sure.
Okay. Is there a disagreement over the second mortgage and how it was paid or who paid it?
Well, we submitted our payments. She did make some payments towards that, and you have that in the summary.
Got it.
Say mortgage and HELOC payments and who paid it. Just of note, it was being paid interest only.
Yep, you mentioned that.
The principal was more than, the original loan amount at the payoff.
Right.
So at the end of the day, that's really washed to me, but you have
And
the information.
$6,000 and there's $6,000 paid out of pocket on the second mortgage
Okay.
for me.
Well, if you want to get those papers to Ms. Roy and to me, then we'll be all set.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, because all I have is the first document you gave us, so
There we go.
do you have any other summaries then? 'Cause I don't-
And second thing, the actual documents. It's the documents from the long thing. It'll correlate, here you go, it'll correlate right here. It'll correlate right here, the actual
What is that
documents.
from even? Is that from a bank account?
Like I said, my numbers are true.
Are you-
I don't have to make up numbers, Your Honor, to get my payment. I'm simply presenting exactly what I have. And they're presenting numbers. She presenting that she paid a mortgage in full, she didn't pay. Sad.
Thank you.
Let me write second mortgage on here for you, so you know what you're looking at.
Sure, that would be helpful.
When do you start family court?
July 1.
And is it just one, like senior judge that does that for Fulton Superior?
So 1, I'm not a senior judge, and
Okay.
2,
I'm an experience as well, not a.
There are
not a
4. there are 4 in the family division.
Oh. And then at that time, you're only hearing family court? Wow. And how long does that run?
Okay, I can't deal with the sucking up. It's not going anywhere. If that was my case, I'd be like, I don't care. You guys said it was a joint venture. You both contributed to it. He contributed a hell of a lot more than she did. But I would just say, I'm splitting this son of a bitch in half. I'm not doing math. Even though I'm a math major, I don't feel like stressing my brain about it. We're splitting this damn thing in half. That's your stupid tax for doing business with your girlfriend. Thank you. Have a nice day. Move out. Thanks for coming out. Sorry I didn't have a result. I thought there would be. Nobody knew when I started because it wasn't done. Oops.